Sword of Coming Chapter 992. On the tail of the first month, another snow fell in Chuzhou, but it was not big, with some rain. It is like a secluded beauty wearing fox fur and a green skirt, and she is like a high-ranking scholar in the snow who is familiar with Uryo. On this day, in the middle of the night in Lotus Root blessed land, in the twilight of the vast world, Jin Dan monk Gao Jun and Jin body state martial artist Zhong Qian visited Luo Pao Mountain, but they were arranged in different mansions, and the two sides have not seen each other yet. In the dead of night, Gao Jun didn't want to breathe here, absorb the spiritual energy in the mountains, and didn't ask for it. After all, she was suspected of being a thief. Since she couldn't devote herself to cultivation, she went out alone and climbed the stairs. On the top of Jilin Peak, Gao Jun I saw a fellow man who was taking advantage of the moonlight to climb up the mountain to enjoy the scenery. He was sitting on the railing at the moment, holding a wine glass, with a jade pot spring wine bottle with green glaze dripping beside him, spreading out a bag of sauce meat. Drink by yourself. Gao Jun could not recognize the other party, but the other party recognized the head of the Hushan school at a glance. The young and strong man was quite surprised and asked, "Sect Master Gao, why are you here?" Gao Jun asked suspiciously, "Who are you?" Hearing the local accent is like drinking warm wine. The burly man said with a shy look, "My name is Zhong Qian, an unknown in the northern Jin kingdom. If sect leader Gao recognized me, it would be a strange thing. I have never been to the Hushan school, but I have seen a portrait of Gao Jun in the study of a son of an aristocratic family in the northern Jin kingdom. Still look better in real." Gao Jun was stunned, and slapped his head and said, "I have seen Master Zhong." Zhong Qian hurriedly put down the wine glass, clasped her fists and returned the salute, "It's a pleasure to meet you." Because the two sides were not acquainted, it was only the first time they met, and they were not chatty people, so they were silent for a while. In the midst of the mountains and the moonlight, the fellow villagers who meet in a foreign land have their own thoughts, and their minds are endless. Gao Jun followed Qin Pingon away from Lotus Root blessed land. It was the first time he arrived and set foot on Luo Pao Mountain for the first time. The real Luo Pao Mountain was very different from the Shangua Immortal Mansion that she had imagined earlier. When she arrived at Jisa Peak, in addition to feeling the aura of heaven and earth that was far more abundant than the Hushan school, she only said that the scenery was full of eyes, neither miraculous nor strange, as if it was similar to the Hushan school. Zhong Qian was the first to break the silence. "I was brought here by a strange old man and a woman named Pei Xiang." "Who brought sect leader Gao here?" Gao Jun said, "It is the master of this mountain, the sword fairy Qin Pingon." Zhong Qian laughed at herself. Sure enough, sect leader Gao has more face. The old man who claimed to have a different hatred from Zhu Lian, claimed to be the housekeeper of Luo Pao Mountain. As for the charming woman named Pei Xiang, she seemed to be a worshipper. Zhong Qian said, "I heard that there will be a discussion in the Patriarch's Hall at Zouji Sifeng." Gao Jun nodded and said, "Chen Jianxian invited me to sit in on the discussion." She wanted to decline, but when she thought of her current status, she was not only the head of the Hushan faction, but she agreed. This time, Gao Jun took the initiative to leave the blessed land. The original intention was to learn more about the personnel of Tianwai. So if you want to understand Luopeishan and Heiranshan faster and more intuitively, is there a more shortcut option than participating in a discussion in the Zhu Shirtang? Zhong Qian smiled and said, "I will also participate, because I promised Luo Pao Mountain to serve as a guest secretary." Gao Jun hesitated for a moment and asked, "Master Zhong is not planning to return to his hometown?" Zhong Qian nodded and said, "I won't go back. I'm different from sect Master Gao. The places where I drink wine are the same. As for people from my hometown and not my hometown, I have no idea since I was a child. I heard that there are hundreds of Xianjia wine brewing here. The price is a bit expensive, and you have to use those kinds of money from the gods on the mountain. I haven't seen it for a while. I have become a famous guest, and I will get a salary every month. Besides, I heard that there is a boxing to learn on the Luopa mountain. For example, Chong Chiu, the national master of Nanyuan, is now from Luopa mountain, and I plan to ask him about boxing techniques in the future. The shadow of the famous tree of people, the masters from all over the world who gathered in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom in the past, Ding Ying, the supreme leader of the demon sect, has an unpredictable temperament, who dares to get close, Eugenie of the Hushan school, immortal and unattainable. As for sharpening the knife, people like Lu Zong and Tang Tie, although they each have the style of their masters, all have mixed reputations. Therefore, in the minds of the younger generation of Jianghu children, they are not as respected as the Master Chong, who is known as the One Sage, Wuzongshi. And close. In a courtyard on the mountainside, Pei Xiang was exercising his supernatural ability to view the mountains and rivers, carefully observing the words and deeds of the two outsiders on the top of the mountain. Zhu Lian was lying on the rattan chair, with his hands folded on his stomach, his eyes closed, and he didn't stop Pei Xiang's unethical behavior. The content of the conversation between the two people on the top of the mountain is clear. Pei Xiang asked, Yan Fang, do you think Gao Jun looks good? Without outsiders, she still habitually called Zhu Lian Yan Fang, which was the pseudonym Zhu Lian used when he was secretly poking around in Qingfeng City. Zhu Lian smiled and said, each flower is in each eye. In the eyes of the disciples of the Hushan school, Gao Jun is naturally the most attractive woman in the world. If you can kiss Xiangzi, you would be willing to die under the flower. Pei Xiang sneered and said, she doesn't see where she is going, and her beauty is not comparable to Hongxia. Zhu Lian turned his head and glanced at Pei Xiang's palm. Seeing that Zhong Qian was drinking wine with sauced meat, he smiled. The taste of his hometown was all in his sense of taste. In fact, from Zhu Lian's point of view, Zhong Qian, who keeps saying that she doesn't care about her hometown, will definitely miss her a lot in the future. Instead, it is Gao Jun. One day she decides to leave Lotus Root blessed land. Pei Xiang asked, in the future, the two golds in the blessed land will only increase, right? Zhu Lian nodded and said, this is nonsense. It's really worth paying attention to. It's just that in the future, there will be several earth immortal monks and spirit refining realm warriors. The old cook rubbed his hands and sighed, the snow melts, the spring breeze thaws, and big fish and small fish burst into ice. Pei Xiang asked softly, Yan Fang, this time back to my hometown. Zhu Lian smiled and said, apart from being a groom for you, what else can you think? The vast world, the heaven and the blessed land, are actually not bad, nothing more than the rich eat the poor, and the officials eat the rich. The poor eat the earth, and the immortals eat the ordinary. It turns out that when you eat and eat, they all become a handful of soil. If you wake up from a dream, if you don't wake up from a dream, you turn your head to be empty. Pei Xiang asked, what do you think of Gao Jun and Zhong Qian's different choices? Zhu Lian said lazily, birds do not know how good the mountains are, they wander around in the small courtyard. Pei Xiang thought for a while, then frowned and said, don't give a shit, what does it mean that Gao Jun is unwilling to leave the blessed land? Zaning is the head of a chicken and not the tail of a phoenix, her vision is too small, and she made the wrong choice. Or is it that Zhong Qian is in despair? The foot of the mountain is like walking into the courtyard from the mountains, from the great master who is expected to become the #1 in the world, and turns out to be a mediocre warrior who is not good enough to be on the side of the world. Zhu Lian opened his eyes and shook his head lightly. As I said earlier, each flower enters its own eye, the same person's different choices, different people's same choices, two flowers bloom, each representing a branch. Pei Xiang rolled his eyes charmingly, you are the most crooked. Zhu Lian laughed and said, it's a pity that Yuaning doesn't read. Pei Xiang raised his brows, the pictures of the Fox country have always sold very well. They used to be a source of wealth for Qingfeng City, second only to the beauty of Fulu, but now it's good, it's almost piled up in the Hu country's secret library. This is not can't get along with the money. Zhu Lian rubbed his brows and sighed. How dare you touch Luopa Mountain in this way of making money? Tomorrow's Ji Sifeng will discuss matters. If you have the ability, you can bring this up to the sun yourself. Anyway, I don't dare to beat him to death. Pei Xiang suggested, don't we have the next sect now? Chief Shou has a cloud cave blessed land on Tongya sect, and the blessed land has the rouge list of Washington. It is sold to Chief Shou at a discounted price. This income, it can just be counted as my private house money. You help to contact the cloud cave blessed land, negotiate the price, help to sell, and then we will share the account later. Isn't it equal to an extra long-term income? Zhu Lian didn't say whether it was feasible or not, but just asked. In the Fox Kingdom, you have disciples and grandchildren, and you are expected to form elixir. Pei Xiang nodded, so there are more and more places where money is needed. Although I saved some money in the past, it is not a problem that I spend more than I put into my account every year. Zhu Lian smiled and said, to be honest, if you don't talk about the long term, if you want to make money quickly, you have to make a profit. The old cook clearly understood the meaning behind the words of the Lord of the Fox country. He was whining around and complaining about his bitterness. Peixiang's mention of the resale of the palace pictures was just a rubbish. Relocated from Zhush Qingfeng City to Lotus Root Blessed Land, Hu Kingdom is like a closed-door country, and it has cut off contact with the outside world, especially the Qi practitioners who regard Hu Kingdom as a place to visit. Charm, there is no way to make extra money in the past. Although Pei Xiang and a group of henchmen are sitting in the Fox country, there will be no complaints for the time being. It will turn into an out-of-control flood burst. In addition, Fox Charm is no better than a cultivator, or even a spirit of the mountains and wilds, who has long been accustomed to the feasting in the red dust, and closed the door all at once to practice in solitude, making the Fox country like a slightly larger dojo. Although Fox Charm as for the preaching of Taoism, Luopao Mountain and Hugua have long agreed on paper that as long as the Fox clan practitioners hope to enter the cave, they can go out alone to travel to the four countries of the blessed land, to travel the world and get involved in the love affairs of men and women. Pei Xiang said cautiously, the Fox country has taken root in the blessed land, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has almost doubled. If it is converted into immortal money, in fact, Luopa Mountain has already treated the Fox country very favorably. Zhu Lian crossed his hands, tapped his thumbs, and said with a smile, don't worry about this kind of internal affairs, otherwise it will be seen outside. Pei Xiang suddenly became nervous. Zhu Lian said slowly, the Fox clan naturally likes to be lively, but Luopao Mountain is a pure place. This kind of contradiction cannot be reconciled for the time being, and it naturally involves the relationship between the Fox country and the blessed land. A cornucopia of money can be rolled in just by running it casually. It will never ask the Fox country to close its doors. After all, don't compete with anyone who is competing with money. Just allocate a piece of land to you in the blessed land, with a radius of thousands of miles. As soon as the gate of the national government opens, it doesn't matter how you earn money, just collect the bills from each of you Fox Chi trainers, just lie down and collect money, you are happy, we are also happy, why not four? That's why you have discussed this matter with me more than once. How can you find a compromise solution that will not interfere with the normal development of the four kingdoms of the blessed land, and at the same time allow all living beings in the Fox Kingdom to live comfortably and not feel that life is going to be easy? I laughed and said at the time that I had no worries about food and clothing, and my practice was faster, and I didn't have to be treated as a prostitute in a kiln by those cheap practitioners who came to the door just to take off their pants. However, the young master said that it is more appropriate to say that it is more appropriate. The sudden change of life from noisy to deserted is also bitter. This is the same mentality as the old man who retired from the officialdom. There is no bitterness in the busy traffic. Because it was a private chat with no outsiders present, I was on the Sun side, and every time I mentioned this, I didn't have any taboos in my words. I said that once I wanted to do everything well, it would be difficult, and I would be in trouble everywhere. As long as you don't think about it too much, things will become simpler if you say it simply. For example, allowing Hugua to open the door earlier, Luo Peishan will learn from the fact that the national teacher Cui Yut set up monuments in the mountains, throw some iron rules and regulations for you, and deliberately stand on the sidelines. Individual a few years and 10 years later, Luo Pao Mountain will have another well-documented and law-based settlement after the fall. All living beings in the Fox country who violate the laws and regulations should be killed, they should be closed, and the words are ugly, just do this, fox skin. The source of the talisman is all there. Now, what is the price of a fox fur talisman in Beipingzu? Isn't it more profitable than your Peixiang selling a few pictures? Young master said to wait. I want to wait for the people of the 4 countries in the blessed land to gradually get used to the fact that there are immortals, ghosts, and ghosts walking around the world. You will appear again at that time, even if the number is larger, you will become accustomed to it, mortal master. Get used to the weird things of gods, and then from the dark and different way to the coexistence of people and ghosts, each has a prototype of going to the countryside. At the same time, you are like a closed mountain. In 10 years, I will open the door and go out in the future, and the cultivation level will be high. From the early days of 2, 3 or 3 groups, and then going out alone in the future, there will be fewer accidents during this period. In the final analysis, the Sun treats all of your Fox clan as living people, otherwise you think that the plan I proposed, the Sun really doesn't know that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, but maybe in the Sun's view, this disadvantage, at every turn a few dozens of Fox lives, can be saved with a short-term gain destined to be smaller. Wait and see 3 words. In short, the Sun cares more about your Fox country than you, the master of the Fox country. Peixiang sighed quietly, the mountain master has a heart. Zhu Lian said indifferently, Shi's kindness should be changed from light to strong, and from strong to light, but turned into hatred. The punishment should be changed from severe to lenient, first lenient and then severely complaining about its cruelty. So the next sect chose Tonggishao, and Cui Dongshan served as the first suzerain, not Chao Qingqing. If the Sun returns to Luo Pao Mountain to practice, I may be the happiest person, no one. Zhu Lian was silent for a moment, looked up at the night, smiled and said, the more we hope for this world and the more kindness we give, whether the world returns kindness or vice versa, the more we will care, and we will more tired. If you think it doesn't matter, probably this is a kind of practice. Zhu Lian raised his palm, reached out to grab it, and clenched his fist. There are only 2 kinds of strong people in the world. What have I gained from this world? Whether it is ambitious, awe-inspiring, well-mannered, and famous in history, or swindling and viciously competing for wealth, fame and fortune, the difficulty is up to me. I am not embarrassed. Who dares happy? Zhu Lian raised his other hand and waved it out. What have I paid for this world? If you are poor, you will be alone, and your reputation will not be revealed. If you read the article, you will benefit the world. If you want to make a great contribution to the world, you will ask for your own hardships, and slowly turn to the poor. Walked on ice. Finally, Zhu Lian stared at a strange sentence. Young master, young master. Loans are like giving, and debt collection is like collecting. The discussion in Jiaisfang Patriarch Hall was set at the current time. Today at the twilight time, the square is indeed a bit quieter than before, thanks to Cui Dongshan. There are only the mountain owner Chen Pingan, the great housekeeper Zhu Lian, the longevity master, and the Chuanfu Wei Wenlong. Right protector Zhou Mili, Chen Wanshu, Chen Lingjun, Shemo, Guizhuzhou, and Peixiang. There is also a Shanjun Weibo who is known to wear a pair of trousers with Luo Pashan. The uninvited Xiago and the white-haired boy under the pseudonym Kong Ho were also present, standing beside Guizhuzhou, who was yawning. In addition, the person who was not called to participate in the discussion today is the gatekeeper Xian Wei. In fact, has the Taoist Xian Wei always recorded the genealogy of Luo Pao Mountain. As for Zhao Shusha, he is still practicing boxing in the bamboo building. There are also Zhao Luan, Cin Yuanji, Zhang Jiazhen, Nailan Yuyu, the direct disciple of Chongqing, Yao Xiaoyan, disciple of Kong Ho, Shi Rou, Zhou Junqin, Zhao Dengao, and Tian Jior of Chaotu Shop. Chen Pingan first introduced Gao Jun and Zhong Qian, and then introduced to them the identities of the people in Luo Pao Mountain. Gao Jun and Zhong Qian both looked a little nervous. After all, it was the first time they had seen the so-called ranked in the fairy class in the books of the Blessed Land. The patriarch of Luo Pao Mountain is actually a woman with a long life, and I don't know if it is her name or Taoist title. The goddess in a snow-white robe and a gold earring, Beiyue Mountain Lord Weibo, said that he welcomed Gao Jun and Zhong Qian to Piyun Mountain as guests. The little girl in black with two sparse yellowish eyebrows and a cotton bag slung across her shoulders is the guardian of Luo Pao Mountain. The girl in the pink skirt with gentle eyebrows and two guests congratulated the two guests. The boy in Tsing Yi who likes to drop his sleeves when walking, named Shen Lingjun, with the Taoist name Jingqing, hesitated to speak, but finally nodded with a straight face, without asking the other's realm. The young man with the yellow hat and blue shoes had a soft expression and a slight smile. According to Chen Shanzhe's introduction, Xiao Mo was a sword repairer, and beside him was a sable-hat girl with red cheeks. A white-haired boy with a pamphlet in his arms, although he was a handyman disciple of the outer door, claimed to be the genealogy officer of Luo Pao Mountain, so he was able to attend the meeting today and record the proceedings. The last person to introduce was the girl with the inkstone hanging from her waist, named Guizhuzhou, a direct disciple of Chen Pingan. Since then, the auspicious time has come. Under the leadership of Chen Pingan, everyone filed into the Jiaisfang Patriarch's hall. Gao Jun keenly found that there seemed to be no order, and everyone was very random. Walking at the end, the white-haired boy who was a handyman disciple followed Chen Pingan, and the girl with a very casual sable hat just stopped at the door, waved goodbye to Xiao Mo, and said that he just waiting outside obediently, but Chen Pingan said that you can listen in today. Xiago immediately stretched out his hand to hold the mink hat and straightened the front of his clothes. Gao Jun only felt a sense of ceremony on this girl. The atmosphere is probably because of this Zigis low realm and low qualifications. However, there were still rules for the seating arrangement in the ancestral master hall, which made Gao Jun seem to have realized something. Chen Wanshu fetched the incense pot, and after Chen Pingan took the lead in offering the incense, they took their seats, because Gao Jun and Zhong Qian were outsiders for the time being, and there was no need to salute the incense with the three hanging statues. When Gao Jun found his position, it was near Weibo. On the opposite side was the Xiago who was discussing matters, sitting upright and solemn. Zhong Qian sat next to Zhu Lian and Peixiang. The little girl in black looked eagerly at Zhang Lu Changming, her expression was gentle, and she nodded with squinting eyes. Then Zhou Mili began to open the cotton bag to send out sunflower seeds. Chen Lingjun helped Yuan Shu to bring tea and water together, and took the initiative to hand Weibo a teacup. He smiled brightly, and took a sip from Brother Wei, working hard. The backer is not Wei Shanjun, and the master is at home, Brother Wei. The first thing is to make up for Guizhuzhou's apprenticeship ceremony and genealogy record. According to Chen Pingan's intention, it was enough to drink a bowl of apprentice tea, but after Guizhuzhou handed over the apprentice tea, he knelt down and kowtowed without saying a word, making a loud bang. Yuan Shu and Zhou Mili have moved tables and chairs, and have prepared ink, ink, paper, and inkstone. Chen Pingan wrote the name of Guozhuzhou and his place of origin on the genealogy. The second thing is to announce that Zhong Qian will serve as the guest secretary of Luopa Mountain. This time, Zhanglu Changming is sitting at the table and is responsible for writing the name. Next, Chen Pingan proposed that Kong Ho be the monk who compiles the chronology of Luopao Mountain, which means that according to the rules on the mountain, Kong Ho will automatically be included in the longevity line of the rule of law. So Chen Pingan added a sentence and asked Kong Ho if he was willing. The white-haired boy seemed to have been hit with a sap, with a face full of reluctance. If he agreed to this in a confused way, it would be equivalent to being a messenger under the hands of Chongqing. He walked out of the gate of the ancestors' hall. When he was a master, what face would he have to see Yao Xiaoyan as a disciple? Longevity squinted and smiled. Chen Pingan turned his head and asked with a smile, President Wei, what do you mean? Whether it is to follow the old customs on the mountain, or Luopao Mountain makes an exception for fellow Taoist Kong Ho, I have no opinion. Wei Wenlong was also full of helplessness. Ever since Master came to Luopao Mountain, Lord Yingguan respected him as Palace Master Wei every time he met. Chen Pingan looked at Zhang Lu's longevity, and she smiled and said, Daoist fellow Kong Ho should be happy. It doesn't matter to me whether I become a monk in the line of Zhang Lu or not. The white-haired boy is full of belly slanders, and if he doesn't join the line of Palm Law, I'm happy, but I'm also worried. Most people don't know, even that Pei Qian once said that the person who Luopa Mountain can't provoke the most is this Zhang Lu who is smiling all year round. Since there are no additional ideas, Kong Ho doesn't need to join the line of Palm Law. Chen Pingan didn't continue to embarrass Kong Ho, everyone sent a boxing book, and it would not be too much to change the editor. The third thing is that Luopaishan is going to buy new hills around it. Longquan Jianzong has completely withdrawn from the boundary of the state, and several hilltops have been removed by the Shanjun Weibo who used his natal supernatural powers, leaving a huge lake that has not been named yet. Clouds and mists rose in the council hall, and a landscape painting of the mountains to the west appeared on the ground. Zhong Qian just felt that it was an eye-opener. How could he still play like this? Gao Jun's eyes lit up, and he quickly thought about it. It seems that his own Hushan faction and the Songlai Kingdom's court, which already has many Qi trainers, can also copy this move. While eating melon seeds, Chen Lingjun stared at the Piyin Mountain and smirked to himself. I just didn't have enough money in my pocket, otherwise I would have bought Brother Weiss Mountain together. Wei Bo held a teacup and looked at the silly Uncle Chen with a smile. Chen Lingjun noticed Wei Shanjin's sight, and immediately stopped eating melon seeds. His eyes wandered, and he stopped staring at Pai Yunshan. Wei Wenlong glanced at Lord Yingguan. Chen Pingan nodded lightly. Wei Wenlong got up and walked into the mist, introducing the historical origins, spiritual foundations and various treasures of mountain materials of nearly 60 hills one by one. Except for the very few special mountains in Longji Mountain that have absolutely no possibility of purchasing, each of them has a rough estimate. The purchase method is not complicated. One is that Luopaishan directly buys it with fairy money. As long as the other party is willing to sell it, the price can be negotiated. The second is to exchange things for land, and there is a gap between the psychological expectations of the other party. The depth of a country's national strength, iron cavalry, education, civil governance and martial arts, do not still fall on the word money. Zhong Qian was not particularly interested in these, but Gao Jun kept the names of the immortal mansions in his heart. Obviously they were discussing the purchase of Shantao, but Chengming suddenly smiled and said, "Allow me to say a digression, Shanju, about the embezzlement of the 600 gold and copper coins in the account of the Chuanfu. Can you take this opportunity to raise the issue? Is it on the agenda?" Chen Pingan smiled wryly. It's very simple, that is, the gold and copper coins in the Chuanfu treasury are useful to the mountain master. Changming continued, if the mountain owner still feels the suspicion of being a fake public servant and feels sorry for it, then I will discuss it with everyone today. You might as well listen to everyone's thoughts. If everyone has no objection except for the mountain owner, then the owner of the mountain can only be a one-word hall, in order to overcome all opinions, and the next time the ancestors' hall will discuss the matter in detail. Previously on the Fengyuan ferry to Tonggishao, Chen Pingan had just brought Xiaomo back to Haoren from Wuqixianshan, and took the initiative to mention this to Changming. Because of the refining of the flying sword Jing Zhongyue, he wanted to create it is not a problem to build a long river of time that runs in an orderly manner. According to Chen Pingan's estimation at that time, it is not a problem to build a long river of time that is beginning to take shape with the help of the gold and copper coins that Ning Yao donated to the colorful world. The problem lies in Chen Ping's sword refining is a bottomless pit that is destined to be filled with gold and silver mountains, and the three kinds of immortal money are meaningless, only gold and copper coins. At that time, Changmin persuaded Chen Pingan, but Chen Pingan said at that time that he was not polite to her, and returned to Xiande Mountain to discuss the matter in detail. As a result, when Qingping sword sect was completed, the first patriarchal discussion, Chen Pingan was fundamentally I didn't mention this, and because it was in the next sect, as the long-lived master of the upper sect, it was not appropriate to raise this issue in the next sect patriarchal hall, so she had to wait patiently. Chen Lingjun was a little surprised, the long-lived Daoist friend didn't even call his master a son. Why was it changed to the Mountain Lord? Why do you feel murderous? Zhu Lian immediately lowered his head and drank tea, hanging up high on the matter, and made up his mind not to go into the muddy water. Everyone says yes, everyone says no, no, I'm a housekeeper and cook, and I'm soft-spoken, you can just think I don't exist. Wei Bo shook his robe, cocked Erlang's legs, and nibbled on melon seeds. The words of the long-lived Daoist friend were very chewy, and they were more refreshing than drinking tea. Changming smiled and said, of course, according to the rules set by the mountain master himself in the early years, as long as the money and treasures are in the treasury, no matter who wants to call them, they need to pass the resolution of the council, and the mountain master cannot exception. Chen Lingjun's face was full of thought, and he asked in doubt, is there such a rule? Why don't I remember it? Xiao Mo smiled and said, I haven't heard of it anyway. Xia Go quickly agreed, Xiao Mo is right. The book said a very reasonable truth, women must support their men when they are outside. Didn't she just suffer from a big loss of not knowing this before? Otherwise, now she and Xiao Mo don't say they have become a Taoist partner, there are a bunch of babies. Chen Pingan glared and said, Xiao Mo, Xia Go, when did you go up the mountain? I heard you are a fart. Xiao Mo didn't dare to argue with the young master, so he smiled and looked at Xiaomi, who immediately understood, and then had another brainstorm, coughed a few times, the new editor, do you remember this? The white-haired boy immediately pretended to take out the booklet from his sleeve, let me check it out carefully, everyone. Wait a moment, the iron proof is like a mountain, black and white words are the least deceiving. Chen Pingan said angrily, it's all right, I didn't intend to be polite to Chongqing in this matter. I will use at least half of the 600 gold and copper coins in Chuanfu. Changming immediately corrected, Shanju, how can you say that you are polite to me, and I don't dare to take this responsibility? Wei Wenlong said with a smile, the 2 gold coins were directly and indirectly earned by the mountain owner, so I have no objection to the call. Zhu Lian nodded and said softly, no objection. Wei Bo helped to make a final decision, that's someone who is hypocritical. Gao Jun and Zhong Qian looked at each other, are the cultivators of Luopa mountain genealogy so courageous? Does this count as Chen Pingan who besieged the lord of a mountain? Although they are all with Qin Shanju in their hearts, but every one of them speaks so freely. In fact, this is the reason why Gao Jun and Zhong Qian have not yet followed the customs of the countryside, otherwise Chief Zhou, Pei Qian, Cui Dongshan, Xing Dafeng, Mi Daijiangxian, Jiao Lao Shinxian. If all these strong and powerful generals were present, that picture, hee. Xia Go listened to Wei Bo's evaluation, and immediately took a high look at this Beiyue mountain monarch. Good, excellent, responsible and strong, dare to tell the truth, he is a hero. Guizhuzhou was eager to try, and asked, Master, do you need me to single out a group of them? I don't think it's a small problem, and it's not a big problem. The sable-capped girl and the white-haired boy quietly glanced at each other and nodded. If Alliance leader Guo spoke, they had to follow. Chen Pingan rubbed his brows. Don't bring some of the atmosphere of the summer palace to Luopao Mountain. He waved at Guizhuzhou, took a sip of tea, and put down the teacup gently. That's it, they'll take it out today. 300 gold and copper coins, and the remaining half, the Chuanfu, is reserved for me. Chengming said with a heartwarming smile, Young master, I have to forgive my sins. For today's matter, please trouble my son to say hello to Xiaoli, please don't let Pei Qian listen. Chen Lingjun's voice was very straightforward, Master, do you want me to join forces with Guizhuzhou to retreat from the enemy? But to be honest, the longevity and the others are indeed kind, just count this Wei Shanjun, the most excessive, if you don't stop me, I will. Are you going to start scolding him instead of brotherhood? Zhu Lian gathered his voice to form a line, Master, this trend cannot last long, if it goes on like this, everyone will rebel. What kind of etiquette, the long-lived Taoist friend is doing things today, it is not authentic. Especially Wei Shanjun, an outsider, talking irresponsible, yin and yang strange, don't know who to learn from, it's too outrageous. Chen Ping placed Ruo deaf and let Palace Master Wei continue the previous issue. But in an instant, Chen Pingan and Wei Bo, Xia Go and Xiao Mo, turned their heads to the west at almost the same time. There was a flying sword that came from the west to the east, and suddenly entered the boundary of Chuzhou, and was about to swept into the Jiaisfeng sword room. Chen Pingan stretched out his hand and took the flying sword into his hands. After reading the secret letter from the Book of Rites Academy, he was both happy and relieved. The secret letter is an invitation letter. It comes from senior brother Mao Xiaodong, who is the secretary of the school. The first half of the content is an official document sent by senior brother Mao to Luopao Mountain in the name of the Book of Rites School, inviting Chen Pingan to listen to the debate of the three religions. In the second half, it is more like a family letter between brothers and sisters. The letter said that the candidates to participate in the debate of the three religions have already been decided and will not be changed. There are 9 Buddhist sons from Western Buddhist countries, and the world is full of blue. Of the 9 Taoist species, 2 of them are rather strange. One is Zhang Fenghai, who should have been imprisoned in the Yanxia cave of Yuigong in Baiyujing town, but according to Baiyujing, Zhang Fenghai is not only a Taoist official in Yushu City now, even Baiyujing's genealogical identity has not been retained. Then there is Zhou Li, the first sect of the Aquarius sect, the head of Qingxian sect, and Zhou Li. On the side of the Confucian temple, 9 people were also sent to participate in the debate. After seeing the names of 3 of them, Chen Pingan was very happy and relieved. Because the latter is the young mountain chief of Henku Academy, Yuan Yu. The 2 people in front were Li Shixing, a scholar, and Li Baoping, a gentleman of the Dasui Shanaya Academy. Mao Xiaodong also said that, according to the meaning of the rites, the Confucian temple allows you to bring 1 more person to listen to the debate on the 3 religions. At the end of the letter, Mao Xiaodong said that this invitation should not be taken too seriously. Since it is not to participate in the debate, it is just an audition. In fact, it is optional to go. Mao Xiaodong's words in the letter were euphemistic, but with obvious tendencies. Chen Pingan can understand brother Mao's good intentions. In the debate of the three religions in history, the participants are extremely dangerous, and the observers, if they are not well trained, their realm is not enough, but they are too devoted. It is easy to immerse themselves in the situation and lead the Taoist mind. Is simply a kind of scattering, in a sense. The reason why Chen Ping'an was not too worried about Li Baoping, when her brother Li Shixing came to participate in the debate, was a Taoist protector in itself, and Li Baoping's academic skills. Chen Ping'an experienced it personally during the discussion in the Confucian Temple. Past. The most important thing, whether it is his husband or his senior brother Cui Yuhe and Zuo, has always been very confident in Xia Baoping. After all, she is a little girl in a red cotton jacket who could copy books and create a mountain of books when she was a child just to skip school. On the side of the Confucian Temple, an old scholar was holding his hands, followed by a tall Shuigong Sai. The old scholar asked with a smile, "Xiaodong, what did you write in the letter?" Although Mao Xiaodong changed the context of Taoism, but on the side of the teacher, he was always sincere, and he said the content of the letter word for word. The old Shotsai became more and more angry, his brows wrinkled, one couldn't hold back, and when he saw no one around, he jumped up and slapped. "Why don't you go? Why don't you have confidence in the younger brother?" Mao Xiaodong had to explain, "Junior brother is the same as your husband. He is too eager to learn, and he likes to dig into the bull's eye." The three religions debate, each has its own small words and righteousness. I am worried that the younger brother will be too exhausting and not beautiful. The old Shotsai snorted, "That's fair, Xiaodong is still an old-fashioned way of doing things. It's your husband who blamed you, don't you feel wronged?" Mao Xiaodong said sincerely, "Mr. teaches well, even if the students can only learn a little bit, they will benefit for a lifetime. So what the students are wronged, it's better that the teacher is not wronged." The old scholar twitched his beard and smiled. This is where the senior brother is inferior to the junior brother. Obviously, he is not slapping his beard, but he speaks like a flattery. Mao Xiaodong murmured, "Real grievances will only teach people whether they should cry or not." The old Shotsai stretched out his arms and patted Mao Xiaodong's shoulder lightly. In Luopa Mountain, Chen Ping'an walked to the gate of the mountain and stood behind a bamboo chair. The janitor, Xian Wei, was reading a book. Chen Ping'an coughed, and the Taoist priest Xian Wei was startled, and threw the book to the ground with lightning speed. "Brother Dafeng, I never thought you were such a person, and you have such a book." A rickety man appeared in the house out of thin air. Just when he saw this scene, he shouted angrily, shouting that the old cook is doing something wrong, and even put this kind of book in someone else's house. Chen Ping'an was full of surprise, and asked with a smile, "What happened?" Jing Dafeng smiled and said, "I'm homesick." End of this chapter. Sort of coming Chapter 993. Chen Ping'an smiled and picked up the book on the ground and patted off the dust. Coincidentally, Qin Yuanji walked down the mountain, and Zhu Lian and Wei Bo appeared on the side of the mountain gate archway with warm trees and millet grains. Chen Ping'an immediately threw the book to Jing Dafeng. Jing Dafeng pushed the book with both hands, and slapped the book to Daoist Xian Wei. As if Xian Wei received a hot potato, he hurriedly threw it to the old cook. Zhu Lian was confused at first. He only looked at the title of the book on the cover. It was a serious book, but he didn't need the old cook to read the contents, and he didn't need to look at it. Knowing something was wrong, with a calm expression, he stretched out his hand and pushed away the head that Chen Lingjun was leaning towards, and quietly took the book into his arms. A group of people sat around the table. Yuan Shu was responsible for serving tea and water. Millet grains distributed melon seeds, and an extra bag of dried small fish was given to Jing Dafeng. Even Qin Yuanji made an exception to stop practicing boxing and sat side by side with the two little girls. In any case, Jing Dafeng was the first gatekeeper of Luopao Mountain. Although his eyes were not correct, he never had any hair or feet. If this man returned from home for many years, she should stop and take a seat. Chen Lingjun and Jing Dafeng sat on a bench, picked up Jing Dafeng's hand, and patted the back of his hand. Dafeng, brother misses you. This is really not a polite word. When Jing Dafeng was the janitor, Chen Lingjun was very good every day. It was a fairy life. Daoist Xianwei is not as funny as brother Dafeng. Zhu Lian and Wei Bo were of course extremely happy about Jing Dafeng's return to their hometown, but they didn't have any polite greetings with Jing Dafeng. It was unnecessary for them to be close friends and fellows for many years. If you really want to think about it, the first hilltop of Luopa Mountain is actually the three of them, but they added a similar-smelling Chief Zhou. Pei Qian and the others have a secret line of bamboo building genealogy. In fact, they do not have Chen Lingjun's share, nor do they know what the ancestor of Jingqing in Yunzi's mind has been mixed up for so many years. Jing Dafeng raised his head and glanced at Luopa Mountain. The man nodded lightly, quite contented. The green hills were blooming like embroidered cheeks, as if to be charming for my return. The man smiled again and looked at Xin Yuanji, who was sitting across the table. Seeing that Sister Xin is not yet married, she is probably infatuated, waiting for brother Dafeng to come home. Xin Yuanji nodded sternly. Jing Dafeng smiled knowingly, but Miss Xin was still reserved, always pretending not to care on her side. Over the years, I have been running back and forth between the Feishing City wine shop and the Haidan Palace. Later, there was an unknown person who gained Taoism and Sanxian, went boating on Lei Zhe, made a net and fished, and accidentally picked up a shuttle and hung it on the fishing net. The thunderstorm came suddenly, the shuttle turned into a dragon and went away, and the rainbow escaped, and disappeared. According to legend, this object has a very strong origin. It used to be the Walayuan in the first government, 2 courtyards and 3 divisions of the ancient Thunder Department. It was specially used to drive mountains. Moving the lake, blowing the sea to reveal the waves, raising and lowering the yin and yang, especially this thing is one of the important tokens to shock and kill the land flood and drought and the illegal dragon. Chen Pingan nodded when he heard the words. The ancient Shu was rainy day and night, and the water was connected to the sea, so the wine in the gourd scoop hanging from the waist of the Taoist Chunyang was brewed with the powerful water of the Danjiang River. In addition, the boundary of Yuzhou was often thundered during the day. Intimidate thousands of dragons. Jing Dafeng urged, Brother Jingqing, why don't you touch this kind of priceless thing? Because this thing was deliberately detained by Chen Pingan in the palm of his hand, so that it would not pour out. Otherwise, Chen Lingjun and Hongsha, who belonged to the water-loving dragons, just glanced at it, just like ordinary people looking up at the scorching sun for a long time. It will really irritate the eyes, and the face is full of tears. Chen Lingjun was eager to try it, but he was careful to sail the ship of 10,000 years, and he laughed and said, Do you think I am a fool? With such a history, it must be hot to tell you so mysteriously. Millet said, the children in the town often play the game of flying shuttles. In the past, Pei Qian went to the school to take classes. She, the right guardian of the Dragon Lane, often took the left guardian to wait at the gate of the school, one on the left and one on the right as the door god, waiting for Pei Qian to finish school. On the way back to riding the Dragon Alley, I often see children from the market gathering in the streets, holding a long wooden stick and hitting one end of a short shuttle on the ground. Children with good eyesight and strong energy can win more than a dozen shuttles as bets. After all, the feather shuttlecock has to be pasted with a few copper coins. The short shuttle is made of the most common wood and is not worth much, so every family's children all have. Pei Qian had a lot of shuttles in those days, all of which were cut by the shopkeeper Shiro, and her playmate at that time was only a grain of millet, so they played, and whenever the shuttles went away, they would ride the Dragon Lane to the left. The protector brought it back, and occasionally Pei Qian would do something bad. Seizing the opportunity, he softly shouted, "Let's go," and slammed the wooden shuttle into the roadside toilet with precision. The mood and expression at that time can be imagined. So as long as there is Pei Qian, it really does not dare to succeed in refining. Jing Dafeng gave a thumbs up to the millet, in the words, "This is the origin of the second layer of this shuttle, and why it fell into my hands all the way. As expected, the right protector has good eyesight. I haven't seen it for several years." See, admiration. Millet Grain grinned, raised her hand and pressed it twice. General knowledge, don't be surprised. Only on the side of Jing Dafeng and Lu Duoxiao, Xiaomi Meili always felt that she was extra smart. Chen Pingan returned the shuttle to Jing Dafeng. Jing Dafeng carefully put it into his sleeve, gathered his voice into a thread, and whispered to Chen Pingan, "It's Li Huai, a little who was tired of playing when he was a child." In the early years, the little often came to play in the backyard of the pharmacy. The old man was afraid that Li Huai would feel bored, so he built some quirky objects, including this shuttle. Li Huai never took it seriously. At that time, he wore open-crotch pants to shuttle in the backyard every day. Those imprints made on the shuttle are not all still there. Back then, I had to help the master to sew up the window paper every time, then come to the door empty-handed, and let the master be stubborn for the entire shuttle. Of course, the old man didn't say anything to Li Huai, and immediately went to the utility room to be a temporary carpenter, chopping wood and shaving wood and flowers for the little boy, and building a new shuttle. "I just told me, the apprentice, to go and find things back. If you can't find them, you don't need to return them." After all, when it comes to Master and Li Huai, even if the people present are Luo Peishan's own family, Jing Dafeng shouldn't reveal the secret, being cynical, heartless, but not brainless. What's more, aside from the accomplishments of boxing, if you want to say that the master and the apprentice are superior and inferior, Li Er is a fart. Can he compare with Jing Dafeng? Married a mother-in-law, and often blocked the door and scolded him in those years, almost scolding the master and his old man to the point of smoldering. This woman who Jing Dafeng had to call his sister-in-law, she really dared to scold her. Back then, when senior brother Li Er lost his pharmacy job to earn a living, she was unhappy. His own man as a master is not respected for the old, not a thing, an old bachelor with a full stomach, thinking about picking ashes all day long. Even the apprentice's daughter-in-law is thinking about it, not often go to her yard to squat in the corner at night, just want get Li Er drunk, and then insist on dragging her to drink with a virtuous family. Jing Dafeng said helplessly, "As a result, I almost squinted my eyes out, and I searched the streets and alleys of the town, and I managed to find the shuttle. You can't imagine where I left it. What came out is a roadside latrine, and inside the pile of rice, Li Huai, this bastard, is really better at throwing things than hiding." Speaking of which, Jing Dafeng, who was full of grievances, almost didn't cry on the spot. He, who respects his teacher the most, was almost forced to cut off his teacher-disciple status because of this little thing. After that, Chen Pingan talked about the recent situation of Luo Pao Mountain in general. Wei Bo got up and said goodbye, saying that he had made an appointment with sect leader Gao and wanted to take her on a tour of Piyun Mountain. Jing Dafeng looked at the boy in Xing Yi out of the corner of his eye, and Chen Lingjun immediately understood it. He secretly spoke in secret, and it was like slang in all corners of the world. He secretly raised a palm towards Jing Dafeng. While twisting his wrist, he was drinking and punching. The gesture of a number, this is to inform the Dafeng brothers, to tell the high head of the Hushan faction, look at the front, the side, and the back, and look at the three's appearance and style. It is more than words. Jing Dafeng nodded lightly, quite surprised, but it is inevitable that the man has a little regret. Even if the total score of the three superimposed remains unchanged, it would be better if it was 5, 9, and 9. Since Jing Dafeng knew what he had in mind, he had to remind him aloud, "Jun Wei Shan, remember to say a few words of kindness to me. It's better to let the high head come to the brother's side in his spare time, don't deliberately exaggerate the facts, just tell her the truth. Just say that the owner is elegant and the house is clean. I'm going to dry the bedding now. Wei Bo smiled and agreed. After that, Nuanshu took the rice grains up the mountain and went busy. Zhu Lian went to cut trees and bamboos on the far side of Yuanmu Peak, and built the mansion and mountain road by himself, leaving only Chen Lingjun to join in the fun. In fact, the most embarrassing one is the Daoist Xian Wei. Xing Dafeng, of course, has been fascinated for a long time, but as soon as the master comes, he, the borrower who occupies the magpie's nest, will definitely have to move the nest, and maybe he can't even keep the identity of the janitor who guarantees income during drought and flood. Going to the house together, Xing Dafeng suddenly said, "In Wucai Tianxia, Cui Dongshan has found me and invited me to go to Xianda Mountain to resume my old business and continue to be a janitor. He said that Xianwei Daoist on Luopao Mountain, hard work and great responsibility, so I think this matter can be considered. Shanzhu is willing to let go, and when Fengyuan ferry returns from Beiju Luzhou, I will follow the ferry to Qingping Sword Sect to settle down." Cui Dongshan patted his chest with Xing Dafeng and promised that as long as he got to Xianda Mountain, he would teach him to know what the real Wushan Dujiao is, and the beautiful Yan Ruyu. Xing Dafeng only asked one question. "Are there any sects around Xianda Mountain like Clawfish-bearing Pearl Island and Beiju Luzhou Kaik Mansion?" Cui Dongshan swore that as long as he promised to go to Xianda Mountain to be a janitor, he would change it for Xing Dafeng. Chen Pingan rubbed his brows. This proud student who had dug into the colorful world, if he stood in front of him at this moment, he would be able to beat a big white goose into a black puddle. Xing Dafeng sighed. In this way, it will only make Miss Sen's feelings come to nothing. Chen Pingan said angrily, "Don't ruin a girl's reputation." Xing Dafeng nodded and said yes, and then kicked Chen Lingjun's buttocks with his sleeves flying. "Is it a wine bag and rice bag? There is no jade pure realm yet." Chen Lingjun staggered and said angrily, "What do you think of as a jade pure realm? If you want it, if you have it, you will have it." Xing Dafeng sneered and said, "How did you brag on the Nuanshu side? Isn't the little jade pure realm easy to come by?" Chen Lingjun choked for a moment, and asked tentatively, "Have you told me this about millet grains?" Alas, what a competent ear-reporting god. Xing Dafeng raised his foot again. "I still use millet grains." Lao Tzu thought about it with his knees. Chen Lingjun was about to help Xing Dafeng subconsciously, but when he saw Brother Dafeng lift his feet and then retract his legs, he walked like a flying, in one go. The boy in Tsing Yi immediately smiled and smiled. Xing Dafeng was also warmed up in his heart. He said before that he was homesick, but he was sincere and true. The shopkeeper on behalf of the foreign wine table, chatting and laughing again, but the new friend is not as good as the old friend after all. Daoist Xianwei is really a simple and honest person. It turned out that after taking this job as a janitor, Xianwei moved into the house and did not occupy the main house of Xing Dafeng. This fake Taoist just lived in a side room. Hearing that there was wine in Xianwei's house, Xing Dafeng put away the key of the main house and said that it would be better to sit at Xianwei Daoist's side and chat while drinking. Xianwei was a little embarrassed and said that the room was a little messy. This side room is not only the residence of Xianwei, but also a study room. The janitor is the most leisurely errand. Xianwei is diligent in reading and diligent, and it can be said that he can't put it down. In addition, he likes to write something. Waiting for the stationery and books to be miscellaneous, and Xianwei often read books like visiting relatives, changing books, flipping through and reviewing, and then putting them aside after reading them. Inchinch umbrella. In addition, Xianwei was used to living a poor life, and he was most nostalgic. He was reluctant to throw away those writing brushes. He asked Chen Lingjun to help him and bought a celadon-shaped urn from the small town shop, which was specially used for storage. Putting away the discarded brushes, over the years, the old brushes gradually rise higher than the porcelain pots, which is quite a bit like a mountain of brushes. Chen Pingan, the mountain owner, was actually the first time to enter the house, so he was very surprised when he looked at the porcelain pot. Xian Wei likes to read books, but anyone who is not blind knows it, but Chen Pingan really didn't expect Xian Wei to use it. Lost so many brushes, just write what? It can't be the splendid novels of those talented and beautiful women. Are you still thinking about finding booksellers to print and sell books to make money in the future? Therefore, I took a look around. In addition to a few bamboo dustpans in the corner of the house, there were a lot of books, compiled into volumes, and there were some scattered manuscripts on the table. Chen Pingan took out one of the manuscripts covered under the book. The words were ordinary, just Zhou Zheng. As for the content, Chen Pingan was speechless. There were only a few words on the paper. If a sentence, fallen hairpin is lying on the pillow of water essence, is taken from the neighbor's house in the book, it will be wonderful. Jing Dafeng stretched his neck and glanced at the content on the paper, nodded lightly, and then shook his head slightly. The man was like a Confucian sage who was in control of the world. All of a sudden, his expression was indifferent, and he began to point to the younger generation. If you comment again, Shanchai for the double pillow, it is enough to make the spectators reverie, and at this time, this scene has a bit of the meaning of silence is better than sound. Xian Wei said with a boxing palm, Brother Dafeng is indeed a senior. Jing Dafeng smiled and said, the approval is added to the approval, and one more sentence, there are rouge spots on the double pillows. Chen Lingjun smirked. Xian Wei thought about it for a while, and then he got a correct answer. His eyes lit up, and Jing Dafeng looked at each other and nodded. If it hadn't been for a long time in this house, Xian Wei had opened his eyes and gained knowledge, otherwise he would really not have understood what Jing Dafeng was talking about. Chen Pingan picked up the book on the table as a paperweight, and planned to put the piece of paper back in its original position and repress it under the book, but said helplessly, you can get it soon. I have regretted the previous thought. At that time, at Jiasfeng Patriarch's Hall, after receiving a letter from Brother Mao's flying sword, Chen Pingan was still thinking about whether to invite Xian Wei to participate in the debate. But when Chen Pingan glanced at the second piece of paper on the table, he immediately put the book and paper in his hand aside, and picked up the piece of paper full of teeny small letters. Jing Dafeng snorted, why is Brother Xian Wei so unprofessional? Chen Pingan didn't raise his head, just carefully browsed the content on the paper, and said with an angry smile, you have to have a degree of nonsense, why don't you do your job properly? Xian Wei looked shy, and wished he could dig a hole in the ground and burrow into it. His voice was like a mosquito, it's not self-sufficient, it's ridiculous. On the side of Brother Dafeng, whom he has admired for a long time, Daoist Xian Wei, who is sincerely convinced, always considers himself a junior. Jing Dafeng picked up the rest of the paper on the table, flipped through it quickly, no longer had the previous smile on his face, nodded and said, Brother Xian Wei has read a lot of books, he has great ambitions, he plans to use the old track of the book Mountain of Huainanzi Mountain. This is to dislike the former's frugality and are ready to expand it. This is a big project. It should have been an order of the imperial court to let the entire Hanlin Academy and dozens of old scholars study, compile and summarize together. Brother Xian Wei, I actually thought that with my own strength, I could carry this heavy burden on my shoulders. It's okay, it's just right to be the janitor of our Luopa mountain. It turned out that this immortal Wei Daoist was planning to learn the way of the opposite masterpiece. He took the matter called Dashan as the general outline, and then divided them into categories, named after the 5 mountains, and picked their words as Shaoshan, and then classified them as hills, ridges, mountains, foam, etc. In addition, I will prepare the contents of the original rhyme and store it under the other rhyme, and name it as Chenshan, and then classify the barnyard officials' wild history and trivial legends that do not enter the stream as water mountains, hidden in the bottom of the mountain range, and then put the land, the wonderful things and words between the mountains under the sea are picked out separately, and they continue to be classified as the Chuanjin Cave House and the Water Dragon Palace, which seem to concentrate spiritual energy and treasures. Xian Wei said with shame and shame, I was inspired by Brother Dafeng to dare to do such an act of shaking the tree. From the beginning, I didn't think about what it must be. It is very likely that I will give up halfway. Jing Dafeng was stunned. How do you say it? Xian Wei said a moment to wait, ran over to the dustpan in the corner, tore a page similar to the preface from a book, and handed it to Jing Dafeng. Xian Wei explained with a smile, Brother Dafeng is not proficient in Buddhism. As for learning, those Buddhist scriptures are often filled with pages and full of comments. I have read it many times. Over time, I have made a scribbled summary of Brother Dafeng's insightful summaries. After that, I still have no idea. I have a rough idea of creating a mountain. Jing Dafeng didn't take it seriously at first, but after he saw the preface, he silently handed it over to Chen Pingon. Chen Pingon took it over and looked at the text at the beginning, but although he seemed to have a normal expression, he actually felt a little bit of an instant scalp tingling. The handwriting on the paper is in italics with a very monumental meaning, and first of all, it is a big talk that is clearly stated. Taoist Xian Wei, who often lives in the deep mountains, is close to the grass and trees in the cold and heat, and has a feeling of climbing high, and occasionally has experience. Since he is a layman of the Buddhist school, naturally he should not look at the Buddhist scriptures, the law, and the meditation from the perspective of the door. I am only 1 year old in the human world. When the time is matched, the scriptures will make all things flourish, full of vitality, and the beginning of the year is the essence of the Tao, so it is spring, the laws are laid out brightly, the vegetation has become lush, summer. On the other hand, the atmosphere is awe-inspiring, and the season is so fruitful, autumn is also. The view is clear and clear, as if the snow is full of the world is one color, and the winter is also. In Zen, the circle is completely smooth and harmonious, even though the fortunes of the seasons turn around without words, the 4 seasons all follow the rules and regulations. Jing Dafeng rubbed his chin and said with a smile, my brother Xian Wei and I are both the gatekeepers of Luopao Mountain. Those who come are chasing after the predecessors. Do I count as a successor? Chen Pingon held back for a long time, then said softly, I see people in a good way, as good as ever. Chen Lingjun glanced at the paper in the master's hand, but he didn't read it. After he put his hands together, he pretended not to understand. Xian Wei just acted as the mountain owner joking with Brother Dafeng, and went to open the bag full of charcoal and added some white charcoal to the brazier, all of which were made by the old cook. Xian Wei felt that a girl in a pink skirt was carrying such a large bag. Back at the house at the foot of the mountain, Zhu Lian smiled and said that it is not an example, because Nwanshu likes to do these trivial things. If there is 1 or 2 more things, he will just pick up a copper coin or 2 on the ground with the millet grains. It will only be happy, but if it is some habit, if you don't have to do the little things in your daily life suddenly, the warm tree will be lost. It's the same as if the millet loses money. Surrounding the brazier and lighting the charcoal, Wei Xian skillfully set up the iron net, and asked Chen Lingjun to go to the kitchen to get a bunch of rice dumplings, and a few people sat around the stove to warm the wine. Chen Pingon asked, where is Ascension City? Jing Dafeng didn't speak, and stared at Chen Pingon blankly with a strange expression. Chen Pingon doubtful, what's wrong? Jing Dafeng was only silent for a long time. Chen Pingon became more and more confused, and couldn't help urging, if you have something to say, say it, it's really a problem, and I can rush over immediately. Bringing Xiao Mo is really not good, then bring Xiago. Anyway, the agreement between Xiago and Bai Zi and the Zhongti Confucian Temple does not include the colorful world. Then Jing Dafeng said with a smile, don't say it's Feishing City. Now the whole colorful world is just like the situation just now. It's silent, stuffy, and no one has anything to say. It's all because of one person's words. She traveled to the vast world with her sword, and then returned to the colorful world. It didn't take long for Ningyao to hold a meeting in the Patriarch's Hall. She finally spoke, concise and to the point, saying that she planned to go to a small retreat, which could be as short as a year and a half, or as long as 2 or 3 years. Chen Pingan didn't say anything, he could only grin. Today, the 5-level monks in the colorful world can be counted, the Fairyland monks, at most one-handed. The Ascension level, Ningyao is the only one. Besides, Ningyao practiced swordsmanship, and if Chen Pingan remembered correctly, the number of times he retreated before he went to the colorful world and entered the Jade Pure Realm was only once. He was in the Ning Mansion at the time, and Ningyao didn't actually spend that long. Her so-called retreat was more like a meditation. Therefore, Ningyao's retreat is completely different from the retreat that any cultivator in the world must handle with care. Therefore, when Ningyao coldly said that he was going to retreat, and it was still the kind of retreat that would take up to 1, 2, or 3 years, Feishing City Jinqiu was shocked. It was a normal thing. As for the colorful world outside Feishing City, what can you say when you hear this? Anyone who dares to provoke Feishingcheng Jinqiu during Ningyao's retreat will be imaginable when she leaves. The last person who didn't believe in evil was the Taoist Shan Qing, and as a result, after a questioning about the sword, the close disciple of the Taoist ancestor went to retreat to recuperate. Xing Dafeng said sourly, "Before retreating and practicing swords, Ningyao found me specifically and told me not to talk about the colorful world, so that you won't be distracted." In fact, after these years of running in, the Ascension City has been operating in an orderly manner, each performing its own duties, and the young sword cultivators and the warriors who hide in the cold palace have also grown up one after another. Zheng Dafeng sighed, "I never thought that Luopao Mountain would have a sect so soon. It's right to choose Tongya Continent for the next sect." In the Taiping years, in the border areas of a country, how difficult it is to raise a vassal king, you can clearly understand after reading a few historical books. The same is true. 5-realm cultivators, especially sects, are also quite difficult things. On the Aquarius continent, especially in the central and northern regions that have not been disturbed by the war, there are so many sites for the spiritual energy of the heavens and the earth and suitable sites for the immortal Kaifeng. Maybe if you snort while sleeping, you will make a noise on the mountain next door. It is difficult for the neighbors to live in harmony for a long time. If the blacksmith Ruan doesn't move the Longquan sword sect, I can be sure that within 100 years, he and Luopa Mountain will be anxious for each other. There are hundreds of different people, and there will always be conflicts between disciples in the future. Tonggishao is just the opposite. There are few monks and more porridge, and there are many land without owners, that is, Tonggishao and Biezhou are far away, and there are Aquarius Island and Pazhuo Island, which are in urgent need of reconstruction of the Confucian Temple, as a buffer. Otherwise, it will be replaced by Lixiazu or Snowy Island. Even if Qingping Sword Sect is successfully established, it will not have the momentum it is today. The key is to be able to cross the river with one. The identity of the dragon draws allies from all sides and completely dominates and controls the excavation of a brand new dungeon. Chen Lingjun said with a hilarious smile, "Brother Dafeng, I won't even recognize you if you chat in such a serious manner." Xing Dafeng picked up the iron pliers and fiddled with the charcoal fire, and asked, "Could it be that the women here today don't like the witty and incomparably talented gentlemen, and instead like the honest, silent and honest people?" Chen Lingjun said, "It is not pleasing to be ugly, and it will be the same in another 10,000 years." Ignoring these two giggles, Chen Pingan reached out and flipped the zongzi whose leaves were slightly burnt and fragrant, rubbed his fingertips, and asked, "You really made up your mind to go to Qingping Sword Sect?" Xing Dafeng nodded and said with a smile, "The prodigal son is a coquettish old man. He has never been restless and guarded himself. He can only be a life wandering around. Chen Pingan was speechless. Xian Wei said, Brother Dauphin, if you go to the next sect because of me, you don't have to. I will just move to the mountain, or I can move to Kolongxiang. If you don't think it's troublesome and it's annoying, then they'll take care of you. Keep your face here. Jing Dafeng smiled and waved his hand, interrupting Daoist Xian Wei's words, and picked up a baked golden zongzi, to say that it has nothing to do with Xian Wei's brother is a lie, but to be honest, it does matter, but it doesn't matter much. Once I stay here, I can't help much. The warriors of Luopa Mountain are either the mountain owner or the old cook, or Wei Haoyang and Lu Baixiang seem to be separated and independent. Do you need me to teach boxing? I want to teach, but they are not willing to learn. They taught boxing for many years in Ascension City to hide in the Hanqing Palace, and I have some experience. According to Cui Dongshan, the next sect specially sent Yunjian Mountain as a place for martial artists to learn boxing. I went there, and there was a place to use them. Besides, in the small town, women who used to admire my talent and for my body could still be called MILFs at that time. Old, the charm is still there, but now they are all how old, no accident, they all have grandchildren. What else can they say when they meet? It will only add to the sadness. Chen Lingjun rolled his eyes and said, eating a zongzi is so disgusting. Then the boy and Tsing Yi and Jing Dafeng looked at each other, both of them hee-hee. After all, Daoist Xian Wei only understands some truths in books, and his knowledge is not deep, so he could not understand the mystery for a while. Chen Pingan said, the Taoist priest named Shanqing will participate in this debate on the three religions. Jing Dafeng twitched the corners of his mouth. It was because he was run by a strong man to make up the count. This young Taoist's arguing skills are probably not as good as his fighting skills. Chen Pingan sighed, and began to fight for the disciple of the Taoist ancestor. It's just not a shame to lose to Ning Yao. Jing Dafeng smiled and said, it's like you lost to Chao Xi in asking boxing. 3 battles in the Great Wall of Sword Qi and 1 in Gonglan, how many more are you going to lose next? Chen Lingjun hurriedly coughed a few times and complained, Brother Dafeng, how can you talk? If it weren't for his own brother, the big mouth would fall over. Jing Dafeng raised his palm and slashed at Chen Lingjun's head with a hand knife. Chen Lingjun immediately raised his elbow to block the hand knife. One said that the young hero was young and had deep internal strength, and he could walk around the world alone. This has long been accustomed to, Chen Pingan said to himself. It is estimated that I have to lose 2 more fights to Chao Xi, or 3 fights. Jing Dafeng said bluntly, if you lose 2 or 3 more games, you won't have to continue to compete with Chao Xi in this life, right? Chen Pingan smiled and nodded. It's a big truth. At most, he lost to Chao Xi 3 times. If he lost the 3rd game, he didn't need to compete with Chao Xi Wenquan. You should know very well that Xia Shinin is the name of the word brand, and Lin Jiangxian and Lin Jiangxian are homophonic, and they are the same word brand, regardless of whether it is Lin Jiang. Xian, Xia Shinin, or the return of the wild goose. These words and cards with different names are mostly mourning the death, memorial work, or paying tribute to the female immortals in the water, and they are indeed related to ancient sacrifices. I remember that the old man was leisure in the drugstore back then. When I was at the time, I often read a book of landscape travel notes of Jianxian from a foreign country. So you guess that Lin Jiangxian is the last sacrificial official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. This girl Rouge, since she has gone out, she must be secretly holding a flying shuttle imitation, and went to the Qingming world to find this brother to learn boxing. She has high spirits and has always wanted to ask you about boxing. She learned boxing with this brother Lin, then there is a possibility of what if, otherwise there is no such thing. Master still takes good care of her. Whether it is because the little girl's temper is not good for her appetite, or because she feels pity for her uncle who depends on each other. She loves the house and Wu. Anyway, I can clearly feel that Master treats her differently from Shirling Mountain. As for whether Sudian has a background, whether it belongs to the reincarnation of a certain like her uncle, I don't know. I don't want to know. Chen Pingan wondered, if there is no grievance and no enmity, what is Su Dian doing to compete with me? The only relationship between the two parties is that they were with Sudian's uncle, and Chen Pingan once lived in the same dragon kiln. At that time, the kiln apprentice had a vague impression of Sudian, that he occasionally saw a thin and dark girl. Always be alone, standing somewhere far away, because there are many old rules and customs prohibiting the firing of porcelain in the long kiln. Women should not be close to the kiln mouth, and should not touch all the porcelain burning tools with both hands, especially not close to them. The kiln fire, once discovered, will really break the leg. Jing Dafeng smiled playfully. Are you really not knowing or pretending to be stupid? Chen Pingan was shocked. She likes me. There is no reason. Neither side spoke a word. Jing Dafeng said angrily, I need a face. Chen Pingan breathed a sigh of relief. For Su Dian, if she wants to repay her kindness, she must be at least as high as you as a martial artist, so that she can really help you in the future and pay off old debts. Jing Dafeng explained, little girl has a stubborn personality and is very precocious. She is the kind of person who has a clear mind at a young age and can understand everything but has a stupid mouth, but she was raised in such an environment, it is inevitable that she has a little inferiority complex, so you helped that sissy a lot back then, and when he got along with Rouge, he must have talked a lot, and over time, the little girl will keep it in mind. Chen Pingan lowered his gaze, looked at the charcoal fire, and said softly, a lot. Jing Dafeng asked back, are you less? To treat a sissy who is not regarded as a person, but really as a person, is to give help in the snow, helping to survive the freezing winter of life. That sissy who has been in a miserable life all her life, maybe the only obsession in her life is to never freeze to death in winter, or die in spring. Chen Pingan said, he has already returned. Jing Dafeng shook his head and said, that's a sissy thing, and Sudian has his own ideas. Speaking of this, Jing Dafeng said with a smile, don't think him scolding people, I actually had a good relationship with Sissy in the early years. If I saw you on the road, I would say hello, and I even invited him to drink a few times. Damn, just because this guy knocked on the door a few times and people saw it, I went to Huang Erniang's shop to drink in those years, and I was often laughed at by her. Probably the only good thing is that my sister-in-law is no longer so thief-proof when she sees me coming. Already. Chen Pingan ate the dumplings, smiled, and joked, Huang Erniang still looks at you very much. In the early years, young and strong men in the small town liked to patronize Huang Erniang's wine shop. They could sit for a long time if they asked for 2 or 3 taels of wine and a plate of wine and food. Often, there were many bachelor guests who came to the door, shouted with the woman, and sold wine. The woman went to fill the wine, and when she faced the wine vat, turned around and bent over, the men in the whole shop would all look at the same scenery. The woman lost a man a long time ago and pulled a child by herself. The pretty widow's house is full of right and wrong. There was also a door knocking over the wall in the middle of the night, and she was hit by a kitchen knife. He almost hit the door in the face, and after that, it stopped a lot. After all, he couldn't take the boss life for the second child. With the passage of time, everyone can see that Huang Erniang has so much interest in Jing Dafeng. Of course it can't be called that kind of old-fashioned relationship, but in any case, the only one who can take credit at her wine shop is really only this bachelor who lives in the yellow mud house in the easternmost part of the town all the year round. Jing Dafeng is also a bad stomach, often scolding Huang Erniang's son to call his father, drinking in the wine shop, basking in the sun. Whenever Huang Erniang greets the shop in the shop come and deliver it, bring wine to the table, there will be a woman's shadow on the ground, and Jing Dafeng will stretch out his palm, grab or pinch, secretly greet the rounded place, and take advantage of not being scolded. In the early years, the small town Lu Dianzi, a group of bachelors who could only talk about things, still learned a lot of tricks with the Dafeng brothers. Jing Dafeng waved his hand, with a rare expression of embarrassment. The hero doesn't mention his bravery back then. If it's something that doesn't matter at all, Jing Dafeng always doesn't want to say anything, but if it really matters, the man is reluctant to talk about it. Jing Dafeng changed the subject and said, "You went to the Hushan faction in person, so you called the Gao sect to Luo Pao Mountain." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "After all, sect leader Gao is the #1 person in the world in the name of blessed land, and there must be no less etiquette. In fact, it is the Hushan faction who was deceived by Zhu Lian and Pei Xiang. He, high and low gentlemen, love Zhong Qian Li Qian, old cook, wait." Jing Dafeng clicked his tongue and said, "It's not sincere." Sure enough, when a man has money, he becomes bad. It's an eternal principle. Chen Pingan was at a loss. Jing Dafeng glanced at Chen Pingan, and found that it wasn't that this kid didn't seem to be pretending to be stupid, and he wondered, what is the biggest opportunity in the blessed land? Outsiders don't know, your kid doesn't know. Jing Dafeng doesn't know much about the Lotus Root blessed land that once belonged to the old Guanzhou, and now the Lotus Root blessed land, but Chen Pingan just talked about the recent situation. Sure, some of them are still in the 5th realm. Chen Pingan was dazed at first, then realized it, and then stretched out his hand to rub his face fiercely, and said with a smile, "To be honest, if you hadn't reminded me, I would never have thought of this." Jing Dafeng's meaning is not complicated. Since Eugenie was able to become a martial artist in the 6 realms, or even in the Golden Realm, only because of a book of Taoism, from an immortal family, he turned to practice the magic on the mountain, and he succeeded in success. After entering the Jindan realm, he then broke through another realm, feathered ascension to the immortal, in the nascent soul realm, and flew away from the blessed land. At the same time, almost all of the more than a dozen Qi practitioners in the Hushan faction were old warriors. A person who cultivates Taoism, which means that the unique inheritance of the Hushan school is not simple, and it is somewhat similar to the Pushen Yunkatang in Tonggishao. And this kind of undisclosed secret will never be leaked to outsiders casually. Jing Dafeng said, "It's strange, even if you didn't think about it, the old cook and the big white goose are so thoughtful people, and there's no reminder on your side." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "I have to ask when I look back." Jing Dafeng stomped his feet hard again, shouted, "Death, sin," and quickly reminded Chen Pingan, "Remember that with the old cook and sect master Cui, don't say that I started the story." Chen Pingan nodded and joked, "Anyway, the old cook can guess it. I don't ask sooner or later. You can ask as soon as you come back, and you can figure out things with your knees." Chen Lingjun said a fair word, except for the master, who can play chess, his heart is black. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "I'm just a stinky chess basket, except of course." Chen Lingjun immediately sighed, "I can't," Guizhuzhou said, "Master, you were in the summer palace back then. As a beginner, you were often begged to play those handicap games. I heard that besides Lin Junbai, there are other Antlers Palace Song Gaoyuan, Lixiazu Chao Gun, and Jinjiazu Scrofulariture are all extremely intelligent and powerful characters. They are first-class chess masters and can be the top chess players to be ordered. When they join forces, they must work together. They had the guts to play against the master alone, and they were also killed without their helmets and armor, and their faces were so pale that they didn't know who came up with the bad idea. They had to use some sinister tricks against the master, such as letting an old girl who couldn't get married, and the man called Luo Zhenya's beautiful girls are all dressed up, dangling around the master, trying to distract the master. Of course, these clumsy tricks are destined to be futile. Chen Pingan bent his fingers, pressed his eyebrows, and had a headache. Chen Lingjun asked, "Is there any moisture in the saying of Guozhuzhou?" Chen Pingan asked back, "What do you think?" Chen Lingjun felt helpless, lied about the military situation, and Guozhuzhou mistaken me. Jing Dafeng turned his head and asked with a smile, "Brother Xianwei, can you play chess?" Xianwei hesitated for a while, but said honestly, "I know a little bit. I traveled south and north and played wild chess in my early years, and I could only earn a little bit of silver. However, there are more stalls in the elephant show, which will take less time. Set up some endgames, and then as long as you look at a few chess manuals and memorize the hundreds of endgame chess moves in the book, you can be deceived." In fact, Xianwei didn't particularly like to play Go, but rather liked Xiangxi. The specific reason, I can't say, just thinks the latter is easier to play. Even in those famous chess endgames, the moves are more than 100 moves long. There were so many changes, and Xianwei didn't feel that it was too hard. The reason why he didn't like the former was not because he thought Go was more complicated and exhausting, but against the 19-way chessboard, Xianwei played the score by himself every time he had nothing to do. I always feel that there is a kind of awkwardness that can't be explained clearly. Jing Dafeng exclaimed, "Brother Xianwei is an all-rounder." Chen Lingjun laughed and said, "Unfortunately, I'm still a bachelor." As a result, the three people in the house all looked at the unabashed Xingyi boy. Chen Lingjun instantly smiled stiffly and shrank his neck. Wei Bo and Gao Jun joined forces to go to Piyun Mountain, deliberately slowing down the speed so that the Gao sect leader could see clearly the earth, mountains and rivers under his feet, the gray mountains with strange rocks and cave dwellings, and buildings crowded under the sunlight. The back of the clawfish is like a cluster of shining fish scales. The adjacent Huanghu Mountain and Yuanmu Peak are adjacent to each other. The mountains and rivers depend on each other. The mountain, like a woman in a yellow dress and a blue-shirted guest, has been staring at each other for thousands of years without saying a word. Longji Mountain is surrounded by clouds and mist, and there is a faint flow of swords. There are Fingshua Temple and Jinwu Mountain monks here to practice cultivation, and there is that mountain. The huge lake that appeared after the relocation of the hills, the scenery is magnificent, the large pieces are chaotic, the water is rippling, the green lotus leaves are erected, and the wind blows the fragrance, just like 1,000 hectares of blue-glazed resort. Previously, Wei Bo temporarily borrowed a talisman sword to Gao Jun, and explained to her that chi practitioners need to hang this thing when they are flying in the sky in Chuzhou. Gao Jun hesitated for a while, but still asked this Shan Jun about the size of the territory of Beiyue. After Wei Bo gave the answer, he smiled and said, "Sect leader Gao is a guest of Luopa Mountain, that is, a guest of Piyun Mountain. If you are curious, just ask directly, don't be so restrained. If the matter involves secrets, I will also tell sect leader Gao clearly." Gao Jun was already shocked beyond measure, but the territory of the mountains and rivers of the northern mountains of a country is so much larger than the territory of the entire Lotus Root blessed land. So isn't Aquarius a vast land? In this way, Wei Bo, the sassy but warm-hearted mountain monarch by his side, if he was in his hometown of blessed land, wouldn't he be equal to the king of the mountain who is the co-owner of the world? Wei Bo noticed the strange expression on Gao Jun's face, and immediately knew in his heart that it must be that Chen Pingan did not tell her about the magnificent customs outside the blessed land. Think about it, Wei Bo took out 2 Shanhazi and Bougie from his sleeves, handed them to Gao Jun, and said with a smile, "After reading these 2 books devoted to the appearance of Zhuzhou Mountain, Gao Sect Master will have a general idea of our vast world." Impressed, Gao Jun wanted to refuse, and went to Piyun Mountain as a guest. The guest didn't bring the welcome gift. There is no reason to collect the gift from the host, but she was really reluctant to return it, so she stopped Yu Feng and accepted the 2 most important books. For the immortal books that could help him solve his urgent needs, Gao Jun and the empathetic Wei Shanjun bowed their heads and thanked them. Wei Bo laughed dumbly. If this extremely polite and high-ranking sect master becomes a monk in Luopao Mountain in the future, or a famous guest like Zhong Qian, it is estimated that even if she has participated in many discussions in the Patriarch's Hall, she will still feel uncomfortable. The atmosphere of Luopao Mountain, ordinary people want to integrate into it, not only need comprehension, but also need fate. Wei Bo felt that until now, he was still out of tune with Luopa Mountain's ethos. To talk about the wind and the air, he had to be his own Piyun Mountain. Wei Bo smiled and said, although there is suspicion of boasting, in order not to misunderstand Gao, I must explain a few words. I, the mountain monarch of Beiyue, is not only the mountain monarch of a kingdom of the Dali dynasty, but the Piyun Mountain in front of me. It is the Beiyue of the entire Aquarius, because just a few years ago, the Dali dynasty was still one country and one continent. Later, with the central Dadu as the boundary, the Dali Song clan retreated to the north of Dadu, and now still occupies the treasure Pingzhou is half of the country. Gao Jun suddenly realized that the situation in his hometown of Blessed Land is also the same now. Tang Tie, the new emperor of the northern Jin kingdom who usurped the throne but did not change the country name, once wanted to personally seal the Beiyue in the territory of the Chan kingdom, and left the capital in a mighty way. As a result, the team only reached the foot of the mountain, and a vision of heaven and earth appeared, and the storm was blowing. The thunder and lightning caused the group to fail to climb the mountain. Tang Tie couldn't go up the mountain alone, and it turned out to be a big joke. Wei Yan, the emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom, who had also planned to do the same, didn't want to run into the wall anymore. Because Gao Jun had personally traveled to the 5 sacred mountains and knew of many strange people and events in the mountains, she had already sent a secret letter to the new emperor of Songlai Kingdom, specially reminding him of this, lest the imperial court act rashly and have bad relations with Shanjun. Wei Bo said, the last national teacher of the Dali dynasty was named Shui Yu and nicknamed Xiuhu. According to our Taoist lineage, Cui Guoshi was the elder brother of Qin Shanju, and Qin Shanju was their brother. A close disciple of the same line. Gao Jun was stunned again. It is no wonder that when Qin Pingan left the Blessed Land, he had this family business in less than 30 years. Backing against a big tree is good for enjoying the shade, and someone in the court is good for being an official. It must be the same reason in Howren world. Wei Bo held back his laughter. Yenner said badly, after all, he is a fellow apprentice from the same sect. Cui Guoshi has high hopes and special care for this young apprentice, Qin Shanju. Gao Jun nodded and said, since they are from the same family, it is human nature for Cui Guoshi to take extra care of Qin Jianxian. It is not fair to choose the virtuous and not avoid relatives. Wei Bo was a little surprised when he heard the words. This sincere leader, she seemed to have a blind date with Luopa Mountain Avenue. Beiyue Piyun Mountain is very high, but it does not give people a sense of danger and steepness. Wei Bo did not directly take Gao Jun to Shanjun Mansion, but chose a secluded stone platform near the top of the mountain, with a wide field of vision. The soil of several states is all under the stone, and there are streams next to it that flow into the secluded pool between the jiamu and the beautiful bamboos. The name is water vine, the grass is difficult to distinguish, and it has the appearance of acacia. The sea of clouds and clouds in the mountains are nestled against each other in this mountain, lingering blue and white outside and connecting with the sky, looking around as one, the splendid skylight, coming from a distance. The mountains are green and green, every time there is a wind, the grass and trees sway, and the mountains follow. The wind flows like water from top to bottom. Wei Bo waved his sleeves lightly, and on the high platform as flat as a knife appeared out of thin air a lichen with colorful clothes. On it, there were 2 immortal futons woven from Beiju Luzhou Sanlang Temple. These are all those games. The tributes from the Beiyue Night Tour Banquet, the Treasure Bank Office and the Guard of Honor Department are almost piled up in mountains. A Shanjun, a monk, sat on the futon. Gao Jun saw the beautiful scenery and listened to the sound of the spring. After a long silence, he recovered and asked, Wei Shanjun has been the Shanjun for many years. Wei both smiled and said, a long time ago, I was only a small country's monarch. Later, when the dynasty changed, I was demoted to a mountain of land. Having said that, Wei Bo stretched out his finger and pointed to Chidun Mountain. It's over there, not even a mountain god. Due to fate, the times come and go, and I was lucky enough to be in charge of Piyin Mountain. In fact, it has only been less than 30 years since I served as the Beiyue Mountain Lord of the Dali dynasty. But after all, it is the body of guilt, and the murder is constant. It is inevitable to worry about the current scenery and precariousness. Frightened and trembling, Wei Bo described his state of mind in this way, not all the jokes of this Beiyue Shanjun. Just like those words with ulterior motives before, it is not that Wei Bo deliberately teased Gao Jun. If she came to Howren World for the first time and saw people and things, all three of which were different from her hometown, she would easily become suspicious and put herself in the dark. In a completely unfamiliar place, all seeing and hearing is beyond a person's old cognitive scope, so you need to find familiar things that you can understand, find yourself a reassurance, or find a basket of slates as anchors, used to stop the boat and appease your heart. This is the case with the local accent. It must be the same when you drink the wine that tastes the same in the world and find like-minded friends in the world. The root of it is only in the word like oneself and the word not alone. Once drinking at the same table with the old cook, Xing Dafeng made a unique guess. He said that the so-called human world may be a kingdom of gods. All people are gods in a certain sense, eating different incense. It was probably a wild fantasy, and downright drunken talk. At the top of Jisa Peak, the sable-capped girl squatted on the railing. She raised her chin toward the mountain gate. Is it a little familiar when I saw Xing Dafeng? Xiao Mo nodded and said, the appearance has changed, but the temperament has not changed. 10,000 years ago, in the tragic battle of ascending to the sky, there was only the general in the great frost armor, who knew that he would die and defended the gate of heaven, not retreating an inch. You must know that the enemy that this general faced at that time was not a sword cultivator or a chi trainer in the world, but the sword holder who was one of the top 5 in heaven. There is no suspense, though will eventually be nailed to the gate by a sword pierced through the armor and body. At this moment, Xiago, who is different from usual, looks indifferent, his eyes are clear, and he asks, did you deal with that Qingtong Tianjun back then? Xiao Mo shook his head and said, after I entered the Ascension realm, I only got close to the Ascension platform, and I never climbed the divine Tao. I have never met this man, the ancestor of the earth immortal. Xiago said, I have seen it. Xiao Mo is skeptical about this. Xiago said solemnly, after I became an earth immortal, I once walked through the Ascension platform, but it was not the one that women should take. I chose to take the other path as a female sword cultivator. Xiao Mo immediately believed it, because this was indeed something that Jianxiu by Jing could do and would definitely do. Xiago raised his hands, hugged the sable hat on his head, and pouted, it's not good to be emotional, and the realm is not high enough. At that time, swordsmanship was not good enough, and it was almost impossible to protect the dog's head. Xiao Mo said, Qingtong Tianjun and the other one are still very kind to the monks in the world. Xiago nodded and said, that's because they all retain a large part of their humanity. This is unimaginable in the ancient heaven. I still can't think of a suitable reason. Xiao Mo was silent. People's hearts are unpredictable and messy, so their words are wrong, their words and deeds are inconsistent. This is not the case with the ancient gods. It seems that except for the 5 supreme and high-ranking gods, all words, deeds, and thoughts are only straight lines. Taoist practitioners, apart from thousands of spells, go their separate ways. If they go back to the source, they are just learning from the high spirits to get rid of distracting thoughts and condense into one mind. In fact, Xiago had already noticed a few familiar breaths in the town, with a sarcastic expression on his face. Tsk tut, the world is a mausoleum, the sea is a mulberry field, and the fish that swallowed the boat in the past are pitiful, but Lu Chu is invincible. Xiao Mo was about to move away, but Xiago suddenly asked, Xiao Mo, is it my squatting position unsightly? Xiao Mo didn't say a word. Xiago turned back, bent his knees to the ground, stood up, held up his sable hat, and looked at Xiao Mo wearing a yellow hat. She thought it was a perfect match. Walking beside Xiao Mo, the girl began to sigh and sigh. It was obviously a destiny made in heaven, so why was it so hard? Xiao Mo suddenly asked a terrifying question. Tell me the truth, put aside the personal affairs between you and me. What are you asking for when you come to Howren World this time? Xiago blinked, neither wanting to deceive Xiao Mo nor telling the truth. She had to pretend to be stupid. Holding a walking stick, Xiao Mo walked on the mountain road between Jisa Peak and Jilin Peak, and said indifferently, it doesn't matter if you don't want to say it, I don't dare to be interested anyway, but I have something to say first, no matter what the treasure is, no matter what you are. When you get it, remember not to violate the rules of the Confucian temple, and don't make my son feel embarrassed. Ascension-level sword cultivators like him and Bai Jing, before 10,000 years ago, almost always liked to travel the world alone, so in fact, today's several worlds are actually both unfamiliar and familiar to them. Although the years are long, the number of monks who have passed through the world over the past 10,000 years is as numerous as a hair. As a result, many opportunities and treasures from 10,000 years ago have almost been seized and searched, but it is inevitable that there will be a few fish that slip through the net, and have never been caught. Later monks noticed that Xiao Mo guessed that Bai Jing's trip must be a treasure hunt, and she would never return empty-handed. Xiago smiled awkwardly, thieves don't get away. Chen Pingan left the house alone, and Chen Lingjun was retained by Jing Daifeng's kindness. The two sides winked and began to whisper again. Pretending to be an umbrella before leaving, Chen Pingan took out several large jars from what was in the immediate vicinity, all of which were filled with clear water. Although clear water, it was valuable because it was the Lingqiu of the Changchun Palace, the Fuqian Spring on the Longtuan Peak of Yunshe Mountain, and two more. The share is that Pei Qian fetched and collected water from Biezhou during his travels. At first, Chao Qingqing went to the capital of Dali to take part in the test. Zheng Dafeng was just making a joke. After asking Chao Qingqing to inscribe the title, he took the time to make a detour to Changchun Palace. He couldn't buy it. Lingqiu spring water is used to make tea, and women can drink it to keep her face. In fact, Zheng Daifeng's good intentions are to let Chao Qingqing, a nerd, go to the Changchun Palace where Yingying, Yan Yan, and the fairies gather to gain insight. If the speaker is not intentional, the listener is intentional. Chao Qingqing will take it seriously, but that Lingqiu water is the source of Changchun Palace's brewing of Changchun fairy wine. After several setbacks, he finally found someone to ask for a relationship, and then sent it to Nujiadu via the Shenjia ferry. As for the two small celadone jars from the floating money spring of Longtuan Peak, Chen Pingan once traveled to Yunshe Mountain, and it is conceivable how they got there. Zheng Dafeng looked at those bottles and jars, and was speechless for a while. It was just a joke from his early years, but one by one, he actually took it seriously. It's just that Zheng Dafeng is a little embarrassed. How can he save these clear springs and beautiful waters that are easily deteriorated and turbid? Chen Pingan said, you go to Wei Shanjun for help. Xin Yuanji slowly walked up the steps, walked down the stairs, and practiced boxing. She was as small as a mustard seed. One climbed high and the other went down. In a trance, because of the appearance of the shuttle, Chen Pingon began to suspect that the Kuokang cave, which included the cicada sloughing cave in the past, was secretly collected by Old Man Yang. Then he just deliberately leaked the whereabouts of Chanchi Dongtian, and then there was Chen Qingli's cross-continental excursion, and he practiced in the middle. The first real dragon in the world, who was responsible for the specific circulation of water transportation, once secretly concluded a covenant with the cultivators in the world, and finally betrayed the heavenly court. And Chen Qinglu, the man who slashed the dragon, used to practice swords in Kuokang Cave for many years, and he preached here. Is it a liquidation of Old Man Yang against the traitors? If this is the case, the deep calculation and the far-reaching plan are indeed terrifying. According to Liu Yan, the dragon-slaying platform, one of the two execution platforms in the ancient heavenly court, was destroyed and shattered by a certain sword cultivator during the battle to the sky, and was scattered and left in the world. The two largest cliffs, one Longji Mountain has many ancient names such as True Hidden, Sky Nose, Windmill, Liao Dang. Since then, there have been many sword immortals and dragons in the ancient Shu. Another stone cliff is located on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, which has been passed down to Ningyao from generation to generation. Over the years, Chen Pingon has always kept a piece of dragon-slaying platform. No matter how obsessed he is with money or the gall of a bear and leopard, he doesn't dare to make any mistakes, so he puts it in a square inch and carries it with him all the time. Chen Pingon never dared or was willing to use it to sharpen his sword. Because it was the first time for Chen Pingon to travel to the Great Wall of Sword Qi before leaving, at the Hanging Mountain Stork Inn, Ningyao asked Zhang Lu to help hand it over as a parting gift to Chen Pingon. The dragon-slaying platform, which was wrapped in cotton cloth, was the size of a palm, with two characters engraved on the front and back, Innocent, Ningyao. A token of love. Really hidden, knows. God knows, really hidden. If you take a word from each and combine them, it is naive. The Sword Qi Great Wall, the last sacrificial official, disappeared without a trace, and transformed into Xia Xinan of Lizhu Cave and Lin Jiangxian of Qingming World. After that, Ningyao ran away from home. She traveled alone in the vast continents and finally came to Lizhu Cave. Chen Pingon still dare not say that he has figured out the details of the town. People's reminiscence, sadness and regret are like a deep pool of ancient wells, deep in it, and can't extricate themselves. The nostalgia between lovers spreads all the way, galloping, and misses someone from afar, as if he and she met in an instant. Chen Pingon breathed lightly, rubbed his cheeks, and cleared his mind. Just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly discovered a strange thing. Qin Yuanji was standing at the foot of the mountain, not practicing boxing to climb the mountain. Without thinking too much, Chen Pingon went straight down the mountain, turned into the bluestone road, glanced at the old cook's house, and then returned to the bamboo building, making up his mind that the heavy snowfall in the capital of Nanyuan this year, the old cook you wait for me. Qin Yuanji just waited for the blue shirt to disappear from sight before continuing to walk up the mountain for 6 steps. After all, she is a warrior who is a bottleneck in the 5 realms, and has good eyesight. She had previously discovered that the mountain owner on the top of the mountain seemed to be waiting for a rabbit, staring blankly at the foot of the mountain, making Qin Yuanji look at him. Originally, Qin Yuanji was still a little uncertain. After all, her impression of this mountain master had changed from the very beginning to the worst, but at the gate of the mountain, she found that Chen Pingan's line of sight had never changed. In the past, when she practiced boxing back and forth, the gatekeeper Jing Daifang's eyes wandered, and she was sneaky. In the house at the foot of the mountain, as soon as the mountain owner left, Chen Lingjun and Jing Dafeng began to arrange troops. Because they disliked the small side room and the desk of Xianwei, they went to the lobby of the main house. Xianwei quickly I felt that my eyes were not enough. It turned out that the table of the 8 immortals was dazzling. Jing Dafeng nodded frequently, and his family was rich and considerable. He gave Chen Lingjun a thumbs up, and praised him as a master of the mirror. It's just that Jing Dafeng is unavoidably curious. Chen Lingjun, a poor bastard, must have made a fortune. Otherwise, Jingua Shuiyu, together with a private talisman, is the first step, and then it is the most expensive activity. Chen Lingjun snorted coldly, saying that it was Chief Shou's credit for having such a scale, and he funded him a large amount of Gu Ye's money, which was specially used to buy this kind of mountain treasure. When Jing Dafeng was still in Luopao Mountain, he often went to Zhu Lian's side. Another Chen Lingjun closed the door and admired the Jingua Shuiyu all over Aquarius. However, the three people in the same way actually had their own preferences. There are all kinds of ways to make money. The most popular ones are definitely those who rely on the female cultivator to support the field and carry the main beam, just like the former Xingyang Mountain Su Jiao and He Xiaoliang of the Shengao sect, but they are arrogant. Big, but only show up occasionally. Chen Lingjun likes to look at landscape-like scrolls. The pictures are both simple and elegant, and they are chewy. Jing Dafeng is not so subtle and elegant. It was too much to sigh, and after weighing it, Zhu Lian had to admit that he couldn't imitate it. In the past, there was a Taoist priest from Chunyang, who went out to sea and returned to Yuanmu Peak. There is a Taoist poem on the cliff carved on the stone. The preface is very long, and the content is far better than the poems. In addition, the font of the preface is not small, there is a suspicion of anti-customer-oriented. The ancients exiled Xianbai also came from Amei, and the heaven is the appearance and the Tao is the appearance. Lu Yan, a near miss, went from this peak, flying a sword in the air. The ground is wide and the sky is high, and the clouds are deep and loose. All gentlemen, don't ask about the cultivation method, follow the pure yang, the spirit of bathing the snow, find the fire in the water, and let go of the heart and live the soul. My generation has learned this technique, and penetrated the heavens and the axis of the earth. That is, longevity. Since ancient times, there is no need for money to learn Taoism. There are only the sun and the moon in the scoop. There was a purple edict who followed Qinghuan and went down to the jade capital. Spring. Pei Xiang was standing beside Zhu Lian. She was not in a hurry to return to Fox Country, and would return to Lotus Root blessed land with Gao Jun. Because Pei Xiang didn't know the identity of Lu Yan, for the time being, he only felt that this cliff carver who dared to put himself and Bai also together, since he was so openly talking to the world in the mountains, he was either making a lot of nonsense and trying to gain fame. A Taoist scholar, or he has a purpose, and is the kind of unfathomable master of Taoism. It can be said that it is the latter. The text inscribed on the cliff in front of me does not have the slightest air of morality. In general, the great cultivator personally engraved the book on the cliff, more or less, with a literal immortal spirit, but this one. The Taoist poems, which are like green words, have no spiritual energy in the main text and preface. Pei Xiang, who is a cultivator of Yuaning, still has this vision. Zhu Lian squinted and smiled and said, "Can't you tell whether it's good or bad, or the depth?" Pei Xiang smiled charmingly, nodded and said, "Help me solve the confusion." Zhu Lian said, "It's both a Taoist art and a sword formation, waiting for the destined people in the future. If you don't believe it, you can use all your strength to attack the treasures and see if you can shake the words in the slightest." On the mountain road, the sable-cap girl and the yellow-cap youth walked side by side, but she was the only one who was chatting. Xiao Mo was more patient because she remembered the teachings of her son. "Xiao Mo, let me tell you something. During my long sleep, I had the same dream repeatedly, but it was scary. According to the book, I went out and saw nothing, and the bones covered the plain." Little Mo, why does the local dialect of Huaihuang County call the reflux of water thirsty, especially in Baoxi County, where where many rivers are called thirsty. I think this way of naming, both ingenious and beautiful. What do you think? Shao mo, you can say a word with me. Shao mo, I think you like me, right? I've done it dozens of times. If you still don't speak, you'll take it as your default. 1987654321. Whoops, what a beautiful day. Sort of Coming Chapter 994. On February 2nd, the dragon looked up. The bucket points to the east, the spica is beginning to show, and things change for spring. It is an image of the growth of all things. Birds and beasts give birth to horns, and the grass and trees are armored. From this, spring farming begins. The imperial courts of various countries will meet today, led by the 2 ministers of rights and military, and present agricultural books to the monarch of a country to show the foundation of affairs, implying that the major events of the country lie in the sacrifice and the wrong, but the foundation of a country is in the army. Farmers in the fields. The emperor entertained his ministers, drank Ichuan wine brewed in the ancient way, and gave knives, rulers and other objects from the manufacturing office, all of which are made of white jade, indicating that all the princes are gentlemen, and they must be careful to judge and weigh the meaning of state affairs. The queen is responsible for giving various blue sacks to the imperial ladies who enter the palace. In name, they are all sewed by the queen's own hands, not the hands of the palace maids. It is given to relatives, friends and children in their respective families to pray for a bumper harvest and a bountiful New Year's harvest. At the same time, it symbolizes the home of Zhongding and scholarly family, and the warehouse is full of etiquette. In Huaihuang County, since ancient times on the 2nd day of February, every family has the custom of eating a bowl of longshu noodles in the morning, and this day's pancakes are also named dragon scales. On this day, both the town women and the women to be married need to stop the women's red needles. According to the older generation, because the dragon first raised its head on this day, if a needle is threaded, it may hurt the dragon's eyes and cause unhappiness. Young and strong men in small towns bring their children together, holding bamboo poles or wooden sticks, and knocking on beams, beds, stoves, etc. Higher than the west side of the mountain, the small warehouse is like a stream of water, staying in its own field. On Fuller Street in Taoya Alley, it may be more elegant, and the meaning of the words is greater. Mostly the weather is good, the Cathay Pacific is safe, the 5 poisons of snakes and scorpions are avoided, and no harm is done. In the past 30 or 40 years, because of a broom star in Mud Bottle Alley, the festive words that were originally related to the word peace have become taboos, and they are reluctant to mention them. Today, bless one party's safety has gradually become a very heavy and profound saying. There are even some wealthy portals who moved from the small town to the state city. On this day, they deliberately let their children break a piece of porcelain, and then recite the broken piece, which is homophonic with Suishui Pinyin, 3 times, to seek a good omen. The women and girls in the family would go to the iron lock well to pick up water early in the morning, so on this day, it was also the most frequent encounter between Fuller Street and Taoya Lane and the people from other parts of the town. The former were mostly rich and noble. Teenagers and girls in brocade clothes were in groups. As soon as it was dawn, they left the house with a lantern in one hand and a beautiful and delicate celadone pot in the other. The 2 teams met in their respective streets. Snake walking, draw water here and return the same way. Early in the morning, when it was just dawn, Chen Pingon brought the boy in Tsing Yi, the girl in pink skirt, and the millet grains down the mountain together to the ancestral house in Ni Ping Lane. Each has their own division of labor. Chen Pingon first knocked on the beam and the bed with a bamboo pole, and then took Chen Lingjun, each carrying a bucket, and went out to the iron lock well to fetch water. Boiled pancakes. Because of the order of the provincial governor not long ago, the Huaihuan County government posted a notice that on this day, the iron lock well, which had been banned for a long time, allowed the local people to carry water home. Guozhujiu was making up her sleep recently, and she slept darkly every day, but Chen Pingan didn't call her. It's not swordsmanship or cultivation, she really just sleeps. Walking out of the mud bottle alley, Chen Lingjun shook the bucket in his hand and asked in a low voice, "Is it the master's intention to open the water well?" It was the master who greeted the county government in person, and then the court approved it. The rules set by the Dali court in the early years, let alone in Chuzhou, even in the entire Aquarius continent, are extremely important. No one on the mountain dared to violate the rules, let alone change the rules. Chen Pingan shook his head and said, "I didn't mention it. I originally planned to find an opportunity this year to tell the court that the ban would be lifted next year, so it was mostly Zhao Yao's suggestion." Li Song did not return the ban by mountains and rivers to the south of Dadu. Zhao Yao, who was serving as a servant in the Ministry of Punishment, was even more busy, but the Ministry of Household would definitely call him a prodigal who only played with pretense, scolding him for stretching his hands too long. Chen Lingjun said old-fashionedly, "Isn't this just a retreat?" Dali officials respect deeds so much, and one is more pragmatic than the other. It is normal for Zhao Yao to be so foolish and unpleasant. I remember listening to the incense villain who ordered Mao on time. In recent years, the recompiling of local chronicles in various states, counties in Dali has been included in the local evaluation of the court. It is said that it was the suggestion of Zhao Shilang of the Ministry of Punishment. This has to be done with the chief practitioners of the various states. The county records are divided into two parts, and the one collected in the capital city is full of immortal qi, so there are many complaints in the local area. Chen Pingan shook his head and smiled and said, "Seeing merit in the long run, the transformation between reality and reality is very knowledgeable, just like the conversion between gold and silver and copper coins. There are premiums and losses, but if there is no smooth channel for circulation between the two, there will be a big problem. The Dali dynasty will become more and more the same as a powerful country with elite iron cavalry and strong soldiers and horses in the general sense, and gradually disappear. The special and most different Dali, if senior brother Cui Yu was still in power, what Zhao Yao did today would actually be what a country's national teacher would do." Chen Lingjun said honestly, "Master, I don't quite understand it. Anyway, I just think he is very knowledgeable." From this, it can be seen that Zhao Yao is still a guy with some real skills. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "It's true. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to become Bai Ye's anonymous disciple." Zhao Yao left his hometown when he was young, and traveled far and wide across the sea. Later, Bai Yi, who rushed to Fuyao continent alone, gave a broken fairy sword, Tai Bai, to 4 people, and Zhao Yao was one of them. Chen Lingjun said with a wicked smile, "According to the cultural background, Zhao Shilang has to be called a master, right?" Chen Pingan nodded and smiled, "That's necessary." Wu Yuan, the current governor of Chuzhou, because he was once a disciple of his senior brother Cui Yu, when he met Chen Pingan, he also wanted to call his uncle. There are actually a few such juniors and nephews in the capital, and without exception, they all hold high positions and are well-deserved important ministers in the Dali temple. In the small town, there is actually a narrower and cramped road than the mud bottle alley. Just like this alley that takes a shortcut to the Longjing well, if a taller young man walks into it, the eaves are lower than the eyebrows. You can only walk with your head down. If you look up, your forehead will touch the eaves. The alley is not long. The two walls are facing each other. In the past, when Chen Pingan went to Sulongjing to fetch water, he would always pass by this place, which can save a lot of leg effort, but the light is dark and a little infiltrating. People of the same age in the town are not afraid to take this road, but Chen Pingan is not afraid of this. Especially when it snows in winter, the dirt road in the alley freezes solidly and turns into ice. Chen Pingan is at the entrance of the alley. He first puts the bucket on the ground, pushes it forward gently, then takes a few steps back and moves forward. Running, kneeling and sliding again, people and buckets pass by one after another, and finally meet at the other end of the alley. The 2 rows of ice picks on the eaves were hit. Take Chen Lingjun out of this dark alley without a name. There is a small well at the entrance of the alley, but the well is small and the water is shallow. In the early years, there were 3 or 4 families nearby, and there was no need to walk far. Qingguang, the water in the well was exhausted, and Chen Pingan, who was not in the mud bottle alley, came here to take advantage of it. In the book, I turn to at the suspiciousness of Melon Field Li Xia. The truth has been understood long ago, but there is no sentence in the book to explain the truth so clearly. There used to be a vegetable garden by the well, but the soil was poor and thin, and the vegetables that were planted were often short and thin and had a stringent taste. Now the vegetable garden has long been abandoned, and it is full of dilapidated rubble that has been gathered from all over the place. Between hues. Chen Lingjun never came to pay attention to these market scenes. There was nothing to watch. He walked in a big way, and suddenly found that the master stopped behind him and didn't keep up. Chen Lingjun turned his head and looked. Chen Pingan just followed quickly, and laughed casually. If I take care of this vegetable garden, the soil quality will be much better, the vegetables grown will not be so astringent, and the taste will be much better. Chen Lingjun laughed and said, "That's for sure. The master is diligent in his hands and feet. He became a kiln apprentice, and he knows how to recognize soil, fertilize and cultivate soil. The vegetables in the garden can't grow as tall as people." Just after walking out a dozen steps, Chen Lingjun was stunned for a moment. He was actually chewing out the aftertaste. He carefully turned his head to look at the master beside him. Chen Pingan smiled and patted the head of the boy in Tsing Yi. "It's good if you know, let alone a few grains of millet, it's easy for everyone to know about it." Chen Lingjun nodded vigorously and took the initiative to change the subject. The guy who went fishing in Huanghu Mountain, called himself Fu Hu, a native of the capital, is now the county magistrate of Pingnan County, and said that the master personally invited him to go fishing in Huanghu Mountain. This surname is Fu. "Yes, do you really know the master?" A 7th-rank Sesame official, who was not too timid, dared to go fishing in Huanghu Mountain, but was caught by Chen Lingjun. Huanghu Mountain used to be a dojo under the flood of water. Of course, it is a treasure land of feng shui, where the fish and dragons hide, the smoke is deep, and the clouds and water are misty. Chen Pingan hummed, "I know, I fished in Pingnan County together before, and Magistrate Fu even gave me a few fish. He is a good talker, and he has no official spirit." Fu Hu himself didn't know why he was able to transfer out the Beijing City News Office. How could he have such a real shortage of county chief officials, and Pingnan County is still located in Shang County in Chuzhou, which is obviously a sign that the court wants to reuse him. No wonder Fu Hu, who was used to working in Qingshui Yamen, was confused. However, Chen Pingan knew very well that it must have been when he and Lin Jingqing were officials in the same government. Going to the riverside to block Fu Hu, I also have some thoughts of borrowing stones from other mountains to attack Jade. Let's look at Fu Hu's character first. Chen Lingjun said, "Fu County Magistrate speaks in a succinct manner. I can't handle the tricks, and often can't catch up." Previously, Chen Lingjun accompanied this young official from the capital, and chatted casually for a few words. Fu Hu said that what is the name of Feng Ho and the Prime Minister, and the golden horse in the Jade Hall must be high-spirited, moving and beautiful. He Jiji, a small official in the Sesame Book and a subordinate official in the book, thinks that he is sparse in talent and knowledge, and is narrow and timid. It's a pity that Brother Dafeng was not present at that time, otherwise Chen Lingjun would have to let Jing Dafeng go out and kill Fu Hu's pedantic spirit. Chen Pingan smiled and said, Fu Hu is more than enough to be an honest official. Many noble sons of the poor family, who became the peasant family in the morning, ascended to the Hall of Heavenly Sons at night, and entered the official career as an official. It was difficult for a word of wealth. When an aristocratic family member is an official, it is difficult for a well-fed man to not know that a hungry man is hungry. He is afraid that his eyes are high and his hands are low, and his ambitions and talents are sparse. After walking through this shabby alley, the road is wide and wide. The ancient Chinese locust tree is still there. There is a long wooden bench below and a few stone piers. There are green clothes gathering on the tree. The feathers of the birds are similar in color to the leaves, which is difficult to detect. When they make a chirping sound, the people under the tree will look up, and the naughty child will take out the slingshot. Gu Kan is an expert in this way, patient and good. He often returns to Mud Bottle Alley with a long string. Other homes are all feather dusters and shuttlecocks, but Gu Kan's home is different. Although there was a notice posted by the government office, there were still very few people who came to the Iron Lock well to fetch water today. Most of them were old people. When they saw Chen Pingan and the boy in Tsing Yi, they also looked cautious. There is nothing to say, and I don't dare to chat up easily. At this moment, the two local old people by the well who have never moved out of the town, they deliberately avoided it and let the soaring Chen Shanju carry the water first. Since he came to Luopao Mountain, the master never seemed to have any way of attracting dragons. On the second day of the second lunar month, he was just knocking bamboo poles and eating noodles. Chen Pingan smiled and said, My family had it when I was young. Later, because I didn't know the details of the rules here, I had to cooperate with many old sayings to attract dragons. I didn't understand anything, and I was afraid that if I messed up, I would break the taboo, so I just think about it. Never mind. In previous years, every February 2nd, the elderly of all families were busy, but they should not be busy. It was important. After the second day of February, when the sun was high, the light passed through the fence gate on the easternmost side of the town. You can sprinkle ashes to attract dragons, but if it is cloudy and rainy, you can only wait patiently. If it is only cloudy and no rain, you can choose the time. Worry about the whole year. There are as many as 5 ways to attract dragons, and each household has a different number of ways. Generally speaking, there are many kinds of people who are prosperous. Like carrying water home from the Iron Lock well, it is one of them. All the people in the town can do it. Just carry water and pour it into their own water tank. It is the easiest way to attract dragons. In addition, there are several more ceremonial ways of attracting dragons, most of which are organized by the elderly who are familiar with the customs at home. For example, in the past, I chose an old locust tree, or a big stone near the road near my home, and used the ashes of the stove to spread a gray line around it, and then let the youngest child in the family, both men and women, hold a red thread tied with a copper coin and put it in the circle. If the family is rich, use a red rope to tie a piece of gold and silver. The child is responsible for pulling the money home. When pulling copper coins, gold and silver, a hole needs to be opened in the circle, like a dragon spitting water, and water is money, which is equal to it is to open up a way to bring money into the home, and then put the copper money into a celadone piggy bank, and then the head of the family is responsible for covering the porcelain jar with his own hands, and the money is kept in the house. With fortune, the new year, the whole family will not worry about eating and drinking. In addition, some old people chanted words, scattered the ashes of plants and wood stoves in a horizontal line at the door of the house to block the door and warded off disasters, or scattered dragons and snakes in the corners of the wall to block evil spirits. Or in the courtyard and the drying yard, first stack the whole grains in the shape of a hill, and then sprinkle ashes to form a circle, like water surrounding the mountains. Bless the harvest today, and the warehouse is full. There are also some wealthy gates with many fields, and they are even more particular. After taking his seat again, Chen Lingjun rolled up a big chopsticks of noodles, took a breath, and asked, "Master, Xing Dafeng is really going to Xiandu Mountain?" Xing Dafeng has just returned to Luopa Mountain and is about to leave. Chen Lingjun must be the most lost one. It would be more exciting if he could chat with Brother Dafeng every day. Chen Pingan said, "I will persuade him again." Don't look at Xing Dafeng's previous reasons, but in fact there is only one real reason, to make way for Xianwei. Cui Dongshan's warm invitation just gave Xing Dafeng an excuse to persuade Chen Pingan and Xianwei. Chen Lingjun was relieved. The master was willing to personally go out and keep him, and if he cooperated with him and played side drums, he would definitely leave Brother Dafeng, and he was somewhat sure. Chen Lingjun said vaguely, "Because I didn't know the exact time when the master returned to his hometown." Li Huai left the dragon boat ferry with Nendaoist and went directly to the academy. Chen Pingan nodded. Li Huai and Nendaoist, who attended the opening ceremony of Huangliang's sect together with Chen Lingjun and Guozhuzhou before, did not return to Nujiadu together, because Li Huai wanted to go to Shanaya Academy quickly, and he had the status of a sage. After all, it was different. Now some academy affairs require his presence. In addition, Chen Pingan has already replied to Brother Mao, and sent another letter to Li Huai, saying the same thing, that is, in the name of Shanaya Academy, he invited the Taoist Nen to participate in the excavation of Dadu in Tonggishao. After all, Taoist Nen had a Li Huai whose identity was hidden on the mountain. This matter, Shanaya Academy will not publicize it, and the Academy and the Confucian Temple will only record it secretly. Before Mao Xiaodong was promoted to the office of the Secretary of the Academy of Rites, he was the deputy head of Shanaya Academy who had been abbot of specific affairs for many years. It was naturally more appropriate for him to discuss this matter with the Academy than Chen Pingan. Internally, it was like jumping up the ranks, and serving as the second in command of a Confucian school, especially the Book of Rites School, Shanaya Academy, and the Gao dynasty of the Great Sui dynasty were all honored. As for how Li Huai suddenly became a sage appointed by the Confucian Temple, it is estimated that the Academy and the Gao family are still confused to this day. It belongs to the kind of unexpected joy that teaches people how to brag to the outside world. After all, we can't be ignorant of conscience, saying that Li Huai from our academy is full of poetry and books. Wait for the seeds of reading, right? Those masters from the academy who came from Confucian scholars may have the only impression of student Li Huai, that they are still hardworking in reading, and always have the lowest grades. Chen Lingjun sighed sincerely. They are all sages of the academy, and Li Huai is also a fool and a fool. I have always seen people as accurate, only on Li Huai's side, I have missed the mark. Nuanshu glanced at Chen Lingjun silently, and Xiaomin sighed and shook his head. Chen Lingjun just pretended that he didn't see or hear it. The two girls had long hair and short knowledge, and knew a hammer. I am the little prince of the royal river, the little dragon king of the Luopa mountain. I have come and gone in the wind and waves, and I have grown old in the rivers and lakes. Apart from my own master, who can know better than me the dangers of the rivers and lakes? Chen Pingan smiled. On the way to study at Dasui Shanaya Academy together, Li Huai once told Chen Pingan about an embarrassing incident, saying that he was naughty when he was a child. He was beaten once, and it was a solid beating, so that his blossomed and he cried. It turned out that Li Huai was once taken by his sister Li Lu to draw the money dragon. He deliberately dragged the red thread copper coins, and turned the circle of gray lines sprinkled by Li Lu. As a feat, she showed off to her parents, and the woman turned pale on the spot. She first grabbed her daughter's ear, and then pinched her daughter's arm. If you don't stop Wisey, the woman doesn't worry about wealth or anything. Anyway, the family is so poor, not to mention that they can't afford to worship the god of wealth. It is estimated that even the of poverty is not rare in their house. She is just worried that Li Huai is so poor. It is taboo to do it. Li Huai is young and can't stand the strange things that some old people often talk about. Therefore, no matter how much a woman feels sorry for her son, it is difficult for her to be served by her family. Pressing Li Huai on the long bench is like a feather duster. In fact, it's just pretending to be seen by God. You've already learned a lesson, so don't be angry. It's just that the woman was still worried. That was the only time she brought a gift to the backyard of the Yang family's shop. She humiliated herself and asked the unreliable master of her own man for help. The old guy knows a lot, maybe there is a way to remedy it. At least, Li Huai couldn't be implicated. After hearing about it, the old man Yang, who was puffing up the clouds, still had the same paralyzed expression for thousands of years. He just said nothing, nothing taboo or taboo. The woman became anxious when she heard it. Li Huai is not your grandson. You, an immortal thing, don't take it seriously, right? Seeing that woman was about to cry, make trouble, and hang herself, the dark-faced old man had to put away the tobacco pole and tell her to stop arguing. Although the woman was skeptical, she immediately shut up. In the end of the year, apart from going into the mountains alone to collect herbs, the elderly who hardly stay at home rarely go out with a cigarette stick around their waists. Besides, if Brother Jia goes there and changes the genealogy ultimatum, Xiao Denggao and Jiu'er must not go with him. After all, our Luopa mountain is the upper sect, and now the number of members of the genealogy ultimatum has already lost to the next sect. Stop it, sir, I said it in advance, but it's not that I save others by myself, I just think that with the virtue of the big white goose, I will bring the next sect to our upper sect to participate in the discussion in the future, and I will definitely bring a lot of people together. When you go to Jisa Peak, you have to shake hands with us. Chen Pingan smiled and nodded, it's something Cui Dongshan can do. Chen Lingjun said, if there is such a day, I will definitely be very angry anyway. Chen Pingan turned his head to look at Nwanshu and Millet, and asked with a smile, what do you think? Millet frowned. Today, I went down the mountain without a walking pole and a golden pole. She tugged at the rope that was carrying the bread, nodded and shook her head, not as angry as Jingqing, right? Angry must be angry. Nwanshu said softly, Master, now our mountain is much deserted. Listen, let's. Chen Lingjun gave a thumbs up, it was rare for a stupid girl to say something smart. It was like holding a discussion at the Zushi Hall on the inner hillside. Seeing that the three of them all agreed, Chen Pingan nodded and said, don't worry, I have it all. Came to Qilong Lane, walked down the steps, and went to Chao Tu's shop first. The girl Cui Huahuan left here and had already boarded the Fengyuan ferry. Soon she was a member of Qingping Sword Sect's genealogy. Only Xiao Denggao and Tian Jiu'er were left as shop assistants. When they saw the mountain master who was visiting, they were two brothers and sisters from the same family. They both saluted Chen Pingan immediately. Chen Pingan glanced at Jiu'er's face and felt relieved, nodded, chatted with them a few words, looked through the account book symbolically, walked through the scene, and then went to the New Year's shop next door. The white-haired boy has moved to the sword worship platform, except for the need to teach disciple Yao Shaoyan Taoism. Now that he has the identity of a genealogist, he will go to the gate of Luopa Mountain every day to wait for the rabbits, waiting for the guests to come to the door, and record them in the book. In maintaining the old customs of the town and introducing new customs, Jiao Lao Shinxian, who rides the Dragon Lane, has made a lot of contributions and has made great contributions. In the past few years, for the happy events in the small town, regardless of the rich or the poor. As long as the neighbors invited me, the old fairy Jia would almost always come to help. From the beginning to the end, everything was very organized. The old immortal teacher, his reputation is getting bigger and bigger, even in the city. He likes to call the old fairy Jia to go to the town and organize all kinds of weddings and weddings. 1 to 2, whether the old fairy Jia comes to the door or not, it becomes the prestige of the city. A benchmark, not to mention that the old Jia does not ask for money. The wealthy doorway with a well-off family gives a big red envelope. The receipt is correct. The poor family, the old just eats a meal, drinks a small wine, and never a word complaints, and then invited again. The old gods are willing to come to the door. Every year in the town on the first day of the first lunar month, the elderly go a lot, so when to set off firecrackers and set off firecrackers is also a question that Jiao Lao Shinxian often asks when he goes to the door to ask for dinner on the evening of the 30th of the new year. There are even people in the state city who will come to the towns riding Dragon Lane during the New Year's Day to ask the old fairy about this, so as not to miss the auspicious time of the new year. It is the explanation and leading actions of the old Jia, which made Huaihuang County and Chuzhou City gradually have a new custom over the years, because only then did they know that the second day of the second month was the birthday of the land god. According to the old god, it was rumored that foreigners' folks have long had the custom of offering sacrifices. In the eyes of the common people, the gods of various mountains and rivers and the lords of the state and county city gods, although they have great magical powers and protect one's local customs, can inevitably have good and bad temperament, and often the temples are deep, and the golden statues enshrined in the main hall are tall and majestic. Easy to let go people are intimidated, so as he of good fortune. But with the lowest official rank, the land public is the most popular official for the people. Because the temples of the earth are mostly scattered with the dwellings, and even some of the temples of the earth are just stone statues carved on the side of the road. Therefore, under the leadership of the old goddess Jia, every household who believed in these developed the habit of warming the longevity for the land public. Playing gongs and drums, setting off firecrackers, it is very lively. At the New Year's shop, it was found that Shi Rou and Zhou Junchen were also eating dragon beard noodles, and she was still a little mute. Returning to Luopao Mountain, each is busy. The warm trees are going to sweep the courtyard, and the millet grains are going to patrol the mountain with Jingqing. He went to the house and knocked on the door. The sleepy-eyed man opened the door, bent over and pulled his boots, complaining to the mountain owner, saying that he finally had a good dream, and it is hard to say whether he will continue tonight. Chen Pingon took Xing Dafeng to climb the mountain and came to the top of the mountain, because Jiling Peak was higher than Tianda Peak, leaning on the railing and overlooking the town with smoke curling in the east. Chen Pingon and Xing Dafeng looked at the town together. Just one to look at the old school in the small town, and the other to look at the backyard of the Yang family pharmacy. Xing Dafeng pulled his neckline and sighed softly. In the sad place of the world, laboriously see the guest pavilion. Now there are not many acquaintances in the town, and even Huang Erniang's wine shop has moved to the state city, mostly for her son's education, so that he can participate in the imperial examinations and be able to be named in the gold medal list. Xing Dafeng asked, "I heard that you plan to be a gentleman who opens a museum." Chen Pingon nodded with a smile. "I've already found a good place, and now I even have a backer." Xing Dafeng asked curiously, "Backer? Where is the sacred place?" Chen Pingon said, "The boundary of Yunzhou in the south of Hongzhou, the Watergao Brewery, has just moved from the Jixiang Temple in the upper reaches of the Baihu River." Xing Dafeng laughed dumbly. Hearing the famous name of this river master, it is like thunder, and a stern and iron bone bears morality, and a dead Taoist friend does not die. However, Xing Dafeng rubbed his chin. He heard that in the Baihu River downstream of the Taiku River, the goddess of water had the nickname Kana on that mountain, and he had admired it for a long time. Chen Pingon said, the master hired by the Qin family in Longweixi will soon leave Huaihuang County. In the future, the master of the school can only be appointed through the county teaching ordinance. Zheng Dafeng leaned against the railing and said lazily, "To be honest, if those scholars who are all famous and move a country, come here to teach a bunch of children to write and write, they will feel aggrieved. That is to say, Longweixi Chen's asking price is high enough. In addition to the large monthly salary, the rare books in the Chen's family's collection are sent every year. Otherwise, who would be willing to come here? It is really too talented. The key is so many years of preaching, teaching, and teaching, failed to teach a Jinshi master. It is estimated that the Qin family in Longweixi worked so hard. In addition to being optimistic about the Dali court, he had to show goodwill to the Dali Song family. He also had a selfish heart and was lucky. He hoped that in his own school, there would be a few similar Qin Pingan, characters like Ma Kushuan and Zhao Yao. Even if there are two people, as long as there is such a person with similar luck and achievements, Longweixi Qin will earn it. You must know that there is an old master in the new school. He was a very famous literary master of several countries in the middle of Aquarius in the past. This old master with a rich head and a poor scripture took 7 years to finally write a famous commentary. It was carved at 1 year old, and the first month of spring. It is the star of Sueda that can be seen in the night sky. This is not some false rumors, but a fact that is obvious to all. According to folklore, Emperor Wenchang was in charge of the civil, military, and Julu imperial examinations in the world. In some local counties and counties with insufficient cultural and educational background, let alone the Jinshi examination, if there are scholars who pass the examination, they will be regarded as the reincarnation of Wenchang Xing. And tomorrow, which is the 3rd day of the 2nd lunar month, is said to be the birthday of Lord Wenchang, so it is not only at the foot of Haranjiuzhou Mountain, the former Lizhu Cave, the old school in the town, and now the Qin family in Longweixi. The Xinjiang school founded by Qian Churen, according to the custom, collects Mengtong on this day, which means good, hoping that the seeds of reading will be able to take the lead. It's just that now the masters of the school have some red tape and new rules. The teaching gentlemen wear crowns and vermilion dark clothes. They walk with the Mongolian children who have just entered the school to the Confucian temple outside the town. Go first. Worshipping the hanging statue of the most holy teacher, and then being led by the temple to a room, the pen and ink have been prepared, but it is not black ink, but ground from cinnabar donated by the government office, and the children line up. Stand up, and the master put a pen on their brows. When they returned to the school, the first character taught by Mr. Shueju to the children was the so-called Kaimenghuhong. The first day of school to start writing was the character for person. It's just that compared to the past, the school has a lot of new etiquette, but one old thing is missing. In the past, after Mengtong started writing the word people, he would leave the school under the leadership of Mr. Qi, go to the old locust tree together, set up a ladder, and hang a red cloth with different wishes on the tree. Even if it is some cheesy content like abundant wealth, or the prosperity of 5 crops and 6 animals, most of which are taught to children by the elders who are enrolled in the school, Mr. Qi will be meticulous and help write his wishes on the long red cloth. Then use a red rope to hang it on the old locust branch. Every time the wind blows and the red cloth blows, there will be a slight rustling sound, one by one from Mengtong's good wishes, like an echo. Maybe that year can be fulfilled, maybe in the next year. Before Mr. Qi, and after Mr. Qi, there was no such custom. In this world, no matter how high the realm of your cultivator is, he is not after all, so no one dares to say that there are 4 births and 6 realms, 3 realms, and 10 directions. Xing Dafeng looked towards the town's main street and sighed, that old locust tree should not be cut down, otherwise our state boundary will still be a long-lasting natural cornucopia, even if it fell to the ground and took root. Dongtian has been downgraded to a blessed land. As long as the locust tree is still there, the Wuling County in the Qingming world, whether it is now or in the future, cannot be compared with this place. Mr. Qi will not stop it, and the master and his old man will not stop it. I was surprised. What do you think? Just let Cui Yu do the fishing and burn the forest and hunt. Chen Pingan said, it may be an ancient sacrifice that is second to none. Zheng Dafeng said, that's why I advise you not to be a national teacher. It's easy to board the ship and enter the game, but to withdraw and retreat. Chen Pingan smiled and said, then I also advise you to stay in Luopao Mountain. When you get to Xiande Mountain, Cui Dongshan will definitely call you. Don't listen to what he said before, as long as you go there, he will have it. The way to keep you busy with this and that. Zheng Dafeng sneered, husbands have clear grievances and grievances, especially brothers and sisters. It's just a matter of going there to watch the door. Cui Dongshan don't think about making me work hard. Zhu Lian and Chen Lingjun borrowed a lot of words from this man. For example, whoever lied to my heart, I want his body. Whoever cheats me of money, I will cut off their head. It's no wonder that Wei Bo admires Zheng Dafeng, except that his appearance is not so upright, he has no flaws. Chen Pingan said, seriously, you don't need to go to Tongyi's house. Okay, don't persuade you. If you are the owner of Lu Island, who is on the back of the claw fish, if you keep it like this, I will leave it if you stay. You are a big gentleman. Don't bother me, even if you don't bother me. After Zheng Dafeng was joking, he was silent for a moment, then shook his head and said sternly, if Daoist Xianwei is not a gatekeeper, even if he becomes a cultivator of Luopa Mountain, the heat is still wrong. Chen Pingan was able to endure not to put Xianwei in the courtyard, and always put Xianwei at the foot of the mountain rather than on the mountain, which means that they only get along with each other as Taoist friends. In the preface of the previous manuscript, the words Taoist Xianwei at the beginning, in Zheng Dafeng's view, are actually more thrilling than the content that follows. Zheng Dafeng is so fearless, and it sounds ugly. When he saw the opening 4 words, his scalp tingled on the spot, so he was not a Qi practitioner, otherwise he would be unstable. Chen Pingan said, then I told Cui Dongshan in advance that you were just a guest. Zheng Dafeng suddenly turned his head, stared at Chen Pingan, and asked in a deep voice, Chen Pingan, what's the matter with you? Chen Pingan smiled bitterly, it's hard to say a word. Because Zheng Dafeng keenly discovered a subtle quirk just now, when Chen Pingan looked at the old school in the town, he frowned from time to time, and his mood was complicated, but the only emotion that Chen Pingan should not lack was sadness. Zheng Dafeng is no better than ordinary people, and even in some things, he can understand the truth better than a great ascension cultivator like Xiao Mo, so he can detect something wrong in an instant. The 7 emotions and 6 desires of human beings can be divided by the monks of later generations, just like the well-field system implemented in the ancient times. Through roads and canals, the monks' hearts were staggered and divided into pieces. In fact, the immortal mansion on the mountain in the later generations, the house under the mountain, the square market in the city, the mountain and water in geography, the land and the sea, the seasons of the year, and the 4 seasons of the year, are further subdivided into 24 solar terms. Do so. By doing this, Qi practitioners have made the most direct and thorough collection and distinction of the overgrown emotions, which is the true meaning of the heart is the of the 100 bones, and then established the human spirit in all things. The fact that the heart is in the hands of 100 bones has become a consensus among the world. Qi practitioners strip out those emotions that delay the cultivation of the heart one by one. Because the wasteland is turned into a field, Qi practitioners can only work in the Qi Dongfu. Intensive cultivation, and then distinguishing between rice and barnyard grass, it will be much simpler. In the end, this move was used as a shortcut to overcome the Qi barrier and to prove the longevity of the Tao. In the ancient times, the earth immortals on earth wanted to maintain their nature, and they could peel off all kinds of emotions and then gather them together, just like sweeping the floor first. And then pour the fallen leaves and dust into the house, and they will not be thrown out of the house, because they can be used as ballast stones in the long river of time. There are many problems that Jing Dafeng had doubts when he was young. When he was young, he went to all kinds of verifications. When he was young, he still knew little about it. Jing Dafeng can be regarded as a spiritual inner show. Just talking about Go, Jing Dafeng's chess power is even higher than that of Zhu Lian and Wei Bo. Although this is because Zhu Lian only regards chess player talk as a trivial matter and never wants to spend more time, but changing the so-called national player's chess decree, to go down with the old cook to have a look. Jing Dafeng said helplessly, "Do you like to ask for trouble so much? It's really easy to change your temperament, and it's hard to change your temperament. If you change someone, I will say that a dog can't change and eat shit. Do it for yourself, don't blame others." Chen Pingan should have stripped out several kinds of emotions. As for the specific ones, and what their intentions are, Jing Dafeng will not ask more. Every family has a scripture that is difficult to read. When a person closes his heart, it is like closing the country and isolating the world. No wonder Chen Pingan is still stagnant in nascent soul realm. Chen Pingan put his hands against each other's palms, rubbed them gently, and said with a smile, "My path of cultivation is of course a bit wild, but the taste is very good. Gone, it's not enough for outsiders. Good times are like birds in flight, and the palm of your hand becomes a story." The thief Jing Dafeng smiled and said, "I heard Wei Bo said that Gao Jun visited the various departments of Shanjun Mansion in Piyun Mountain, and suddenly changed his mind and planned to stay here for a few more days." Chen Pingan said, "The quilt is useless. She is a woman and would like to live with you and Xian Wei. What are you thinking?" Gao Jun was reluctant to leave, and made up his mind to observe the vast world beyond the Blessed Land. It seems that it is similar to Pei Qian going to school in the village school in the past. It can be delayed for a few days. I heard from the old cook that the first time Pei Qian went down the mountain to go to the small town school, he was actually playing crazy outside for a day, and then pretended to limping back to Luo Pao Mountain, saying that he had a broken foot. If it wasn't for Zhu Lian's trump card, saying that he would inform her master, it is estimated that Pei Qian would have been able to go to school for a long time. Even so, even if Pei Qian was reluctant to go to the school, in the first few days, Zhu Lian, in order to prevent Pei Qian from skipping class, was a battle of wits and courage. The mountains stretch, the peach-red willows are green, the mountain guests look at the feet of the clouds, and the children sweep the flowers. On the other side of the town, the sun is shining brightly, and swallows hold mud and go back and forth between the fields and houses. Chen Pingan said in his heart, "If your senior brother is the same person, then according to the records in the secret archives of the Summer Palace, his real name is Yan Guo." Jing Dafeng smiled, "Why is senior brother Xia having such a surname? He took such a name." Swallows are also small birds, but according to the ancient Chinese character, Yan, in seal script, from a bird to yi, they are the giants of heaven and earth. Jing Dafeng turned around, leaned back against the railing, looked at the mountaintop palace that was originally a mountain temple, and said, "I heard that Lin Shui is in retreat." Chen Pingan nodded. Before the retreat, Lin Shui sent a secret letter. In fact, there was only one sentence in the letter: "You can go to the Logging Institute for New Year greetings in the first month of next year." Jing Dafeng said with a smile, "Then you are not relieved. This friend will not break up only because of the grievances of his parents." Chen Pingan took out 2 pots of wine from his sleeves and handed Jing Dafeng a pot. It's not an exaggeration to say it's a relief. Of course, the reason why he didn't go to pay New Year's greetings was not because he was afraid of hitting the wall and shutting the door, but Chen Pingan always felt that in the style of Lin Shui, saying, yes, in the letter was a hint of, not necessary. After all, although Lin Shuyi has been meticulous since he was a child, he is not the kind of person who likes to be around the corner. Pretending to be an umbrella. Therefore, according to Lin Shuyi's consistent style, if he really wants to go to his father's New Year's greetings, most of the letters will use the word must. In addition, thinking that with Lin Shuyi's cultivating qualifications, it is very likely that he will leave the customs in the first month. Chen Pingan will reply to the letter and ask at that time. I never thought that Lin Shuyi has not yet left the customs. Xing Dafeng didn't drink, just shook the jug, and suddenly said something that left Chen Pingan dumbfounded. Then do you know that Lin Shuyi was almost the one? Chen Pingan took a sip of wine. Xing Dafeng smiled and said, do you think Li Huai is more like him? Chen Pingan shook his head. I thought Li Huai was the least like it from the beginning. It means that you knew the old man better than me a long time ago. Xing Dafeng nodded. Master is so willing to be Li Huai. Just think about this little bastard. He will be carefree all his life. He only needs to have an occasional flash of inspiration and live a stable life. Don't feel that you stole something. Lin Shuyi failed to keep this one in the end. For him, it was the best fate. Otherwise, he would have been eaten by some guy who went to the sky. If you don't believe it, you can find a chance to find Lin Shuyi and ask him personally. The answer he gave must be indifferent and firm in his Taoism. I think Lin Shuyi has been a Taoist and a scholar since he was a child, so the future achievements will be very high. Anyway, going back from the results, Cui Yu must have been the first person to pass the life porcelain and noticed a hint of it, so he immediately came to Lizhu Cave and gave Lin Shuyi such a name in person, and then invited him. Only Lin Jingqing, one of the assistant officers of the kiln supervision and construction department, served as the custodian. Of course, Lin Shou took the lead when he was born, and it was absolutely impossible to do it with external force and manpower. Lin Shuyi in this life is equivalent to relying on his ability to accumulate his previous life and reincarnation time and time again to cast such a good child. Therefore, he and you are two extremes. Looking at the long river of time in Lizhu Cave, Yuchen Pingan, there are also many ordinary people from the small town. Relatively speaking, it is really unsurprising, especially when your natal porcelain has been inspected and it is the qualification of the earth immortal, and then it is broken. It's not you anymore. In this matter, the master all confirmed it back then. To be precise, the master probably regarded you as a person early on. But Cui Ye's mind was treacherous, and he deliberately used the name Lin Shuyi to mess up the heavens. Not only me, but also master and his old man, didn't understand Cui Ye's intentions. Before I went to the colorful world, I talked to master about this alone, and master shook his head and said he couldn't see clearly. From the beginning to the end, I didn't know whether Cui Yu wanted Lin Shuyi, who had a prototype of one early, and whether he would become that one in the future. I still don't want him to get such a good fortune. Chen Pingan, you should have heard an old saying, if a person is roughly sure that his fate is good, don't let anyone tell his fortune casually, it will get thinner and thinner. Cui Yu just used the name Lin Shuyi to determine whether his original intention was to promote or hinder him. There seems to be no answer. It's wrong again. Maybe that's where Cui Yu really shines. In the past, everyone in Lizhu Cave was one, and the flow of luck had nothing to do with good or evil. It had nothing to do with whether he was a cultivator or not. It was only a matter of mutual recognition and denial between people. Those who are recognized will add a few points, and those who are denied will reduce a few points. In this way, whether you look at people's hearts from the surface or the eyes of a monk on the mountain, you, the broom star of Mud Bottle Alley, are you? Isn't it the last thing you should be one? Chen Pingan, it's wrong, it's a big mistake, because you still don't know enough about the real situation in the heart of the human heart, the real likes and dislikes. In fact, it is never on the face, not even in our heart. As for where it exists, this problem is very far-reaching, such as where the voice comes from, who speaks, and the relationship between people and memory, who is driving the idea, and whether the souls of all sentient beings originate from a piece of water. Things like that are more complicated. Xing Dafeng said with a dry mouth, opened the jug, raised his head to drink, wiped his mouth, and couldn't help laughing. Just send me with Dong Shuijing's glutinous rice wine. Chen Pingan smiled and said, if you stay in Luopao Mountain, even if I rob it, I will back a few jars of 100 flowers brew for you. Xing Dafeng's eyes lit up. TSK admiringly said, Baihua Brewing, an ancient tribute from Baihua blessed land. Chen Pingan nodded and said, know the goods. Xing Dafeng said, didn't they say that they will no longer be brewed? It seems that the difficulty is not too big. Chen Pingan, who is sincere, said decisively, otherwise, how can I show my sincerity? You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.